Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
A large amount of magic gathered beneath his feet, and Chris stepped out, landing steadily on the stairs made entirely of magic. After being activated, the two human-bodied, dog-faced stone guards rushed into the gate. Finding no extra people, they slowly closed the gate of the library tower. The crowd outside stared in disbelief at the scene. A wizard apprentice had stood on the trial steps that only qualified wizards were entitled to stand on. As the door closed, Chris looked up at the pitch-black third floor of the tower and began to think about his next move. Feeling his magic power drain away at a rate as small as a drop in the ocean, he was certain that with his remaining magic power he could easily climb up step by step. But if there are stairs leading to the third floor, why use magic to create an inaccessible staircase? Although he subconsciously walked up the stairs, Chris, unaware of the meaning behind the trial staircase, felt a sense of unease. Could it be that the steps beneath one's own feet are the shortcut to climb higher? So why would someone deliberately prevent people standing on the steps from going up? Unless, of course, this is an elevator, that must be it. Chris was very satisfied with his deduction. In the world of wizarding magic, it was perfectly normal for someone to be able to invent a magic-powered elevator. So he took a deep breath and began to pour magic into the steps beneath his feet, trying to activate the magic elevator. What he didn't know was that this action was gradually changing the magical composition of the entire staircase. Meanwhile, in another dimension, the planet formed by the new skill Serpent Star Core began to vibrate, followed by a rumbling of the earth, an atmosphere of trembling, and a churning of the sea. Countless magical forces surged into the steps like a tidal wave, and a tremendous force pulled the step beneath Chris's feet slowly upwards. Originally, it was only necessary to maintain a match between the magic power underfoot and the two different magic flows on the stairs. But now, the entire magic composition of the stairs has become Chris's magic power, and there is no longer a need to adjust the match or forcibly change the energy. As Chris stepped onto the third floor, the stairs behind him crumbled and scattered in the wind as the source of magic disappeared. Clap, clap, a crisp clapping sound rang out. The applause seemed to be a signal, instantly illuminating the third floor with countless candles. It illuminated a huge oak table, several bookshelves, a pair of armchairs, and the odds and ends on the table. What a magnificent performance! Flavia Asarin, the lady of the library tower, greets you and welcomes you. Chris looked up and saw a silver-haired, red-eyed female wizard sitting upright in a large metal armchair, staring straight at him like a figure from a painting. The only difference from the painting is that the woman in front of me doesn't have a wandering gaze. Instead, her eyes are bright, like a child who has found a new toy. Chris recognized that the voices he heard during the previous two encounters matched the voices he heard in person, confirming that it was indeed the woman in front of him who claimed to be Miss Flavia Asarin, the owner of the library tower. Who had invited him to the third floor? I was worried about not being able to find the exact location of the books, but now that the tower owner is here, I can just ask her if I want any books or materials, and it might be faster. Thinking this, Chris approached Flavia, smiled, and returned her greeting before sitting down in the chair beside her. Beautiful Miss Flavia, my name is Chris. It's an honor to receive your invitation. I hope we have a pleasant day. He pondered the way nobles spoke in his memory and tried to imitate it, but the last sentence just felt a little strange coming from under these circumstances. Chris, a 24-year-old wizard apprentice who hasn't learned the basic fireball spell in years and has been skipping classes for years, yet his true strength has reached the level of an elemental wizard. Flavia tapped her fair right index finger lightly on the thick oak tabletop, rested her left hand on her forehead in thought for a moment, and then asked directly. Chris was taken aback. The other party seemed to know everything about his situation in such a short time, but why was he specifically asking him again? Yes, that was due to some unforeseen circumstances. It's all right. Given your situation, the most unusual thing is that there are no special circumstances. After all, this is the first time I've encountered something inside the tower whose exact magical power level cannot be measured. Before Chris could even think of a response, Flavia raised her hand to interrupt him, giving him an "I understand" look. You might be wondering why I know so much about your information. The answer is simple. This tower contains the files and evaluations of every student in the academy, and I have the ability to access these materials at any time within the tower. As if sensing Chris's inner doubts, Flavia chuckled softly and slowly explained. As for how I know your true skill level, it's based on your performance when you cleared the stairway of trials. Chris fell silent instantly upon hearing this, completely stunned. Could it be that I guessed wrong? That staircase wasn't an elevator that required magical infusion to function, but rather a moving obstacle that tested a wizard's overall skill level. Thinking of this, his eyes twitched almost imperceptibly twice, and he also curiously summoned the system panel to check the evaluation of his current status. Tide modifier. Overall assessment. Formal wizard, capable of skillfully casting various spells including offensive, defensive, and support spells, and beginning to participate in more complex magical research. Status bar, physiological strength. Intermediate right arrow, advanced, excellent physical qualities, capable of engaging in high-intensity physical and magical activities. Mental strength, advanced right arrow, elite, exceptional mental concentration, capable of engaging in prolonged mental activity without fatigue. Magic power. From tiny stream to stream plus infinity, magic power can flow smoothly and continuously. Chris was overwhelmed by a series of unexpected experiences recently. He never imagined that he had unknowingly reached the level of a formal wizard. He sighed to himself. The only problem is that the system's overall assessment only rank me a formal wizard, while the other party claims I'm at the level of an elemental wizard. From this perspective, perhaps the system's classification of strength levels differs somewhat from the world's method of determining strength levels, or perhaps the system's assessment is more comprehensive. Although the opponent misjudged their own strength this time, the match was still extremely close. Perhaps we could consider using more diverse methods or even avoiding taking personal action altogether to minimize the leakage of our personal information. As Chris pondered this, he set a small goal: to diversify his tactics to conceal his true trump card. Information unknown can also be considered a powerful trump card. As if oblivious to Chris's dazed expression, Flavia continued, speaking to herself in a slightly delighted tone. I must say, your performance in clearing the ladder of trials was the best I've ever seen since I established this challenge. I believe that any certified tower master who saw your performance just now would agree that you have reached the level of elemental wizard. Seeing that the other person was about to continue, Chris quickly interrupted her long-winded explanation and raised his own question. Dear Lady Flavia, what exactly is the meaning of the Tower Master qualification certification and the establishment of the trial project, the Stairway of Trials? Flavia was taken aback at first, but quickly regained the composure she had displayed at the start of the conversation and spoke calmly. My apologies, I forgot that although you have reached the level of an elemental wizard, you lack the relevant knowledge. This is a dereliction of duty on my part as the Tower Master. Please allow me to explain. The so-called Tower Master is a wizard who, after reaching the level of Elemental Wizard and through a series of official certifications from the Wizarding Association and the accumulation of certain merits, is able to build their own mage tower on a piece of land and become a Tower Master. At the same time, the Tower Master also has the authority to set trials that can only be participated in by those below the Elemental Wizard level. Those who pass will be recognized as wizards with the corresponding strength. I merely sensed your unfathomable magical power and out of curiosity extended the invitation. I hope I haven't caused you any undue trouble. As Flavia explained, Chris gradually understood the whole story and realized that he had passed the official verification and could walk outside as an elemental wizard. Such a frivolous display of strength does not align with his plan for low-key development. So he resolutely said, "That's all right. After passing the tests set by the Tower Master, is it possible to not receive the relevant proof of strength?" This made Flavia chuckle. You're really something. I've only ever seen people bribe the tower master to get through, never someone who doesn't want the proof after they've passed. By the way, because the challenges were so difficult that no one has been able to complete them for a long time, my Tower of Libraries certification is one of the most valuable certificates available. With this certificate, you can go to the Wizarding Association to receive clothing and a certificate corresponding to your strength. Alright, even if you don't want outside influences on your magical research, keeping it to yourself will save you the trouble of taking another assessment. Isn't that a good thing? After saying that, without waiting for a refusal, she quickly stood up and stuffed a stamp into Chris's hand, then sat back down in her chair. Chris couldn't very well refuse outright, so he picked up the stamp and glanced at it. The seal was engraved with intricate magical runes, shimmering with a faint silver light. Feel the magic flowing within the seal in your hand while a familiar mechanical notification sound rings out. A consumable magical item has been detected. Absorb it. Hearing the familiar system voice, Chris was startled. This small stamp used to verify identity was actually a magical item. With these questions in mind, Chris continued to look at the system interface. Tide modifier, item analysis, item name, seal library tower certification, item level, beginner item effectiveness. Identity verification serves as proof of strength at the elemental wizard level or above and can be used by the Wizarding Association to obtain clothing and certificates corresponding to that level. Magic amplification. The magic contained within the seal can provide the holder with a certain degree of magic amplification. Magic circuit enhancement. The magical runes on the seal can enhance the holder's magic circuits, slightly increasing casting efficiency. Chris's fingertips lightly touched the exquisite Tower of Libraries authentication seal, and a sense of awe welled up inside him. Even basic magical items are used merely as tokens of identity verification, which speaks volumes about their profound heritage. He had initially thought it would be at most a half-finished product, but the high level of treatment he received from the elemental wizard far exceeded his expectations. That makes sense. When you've mastered your basic magic skills and are ready to combine them into more advanced spells, the number of advanced development attempts required also increases. Indeed, the path of a wizard's cultivation requires substantial financial support and is time-consuming and laborious. If you can use your identity to obtain more magical items, your leveling speed can be increased even further. Thinking this through, Chris stopped refusing and put the seal, a symbol of power and status, into his pocket, casually asking, "Speaking of which, is that you in the painting on the first floor? You look almost exactly the same." Flavia's porcelain-like cheeks flushed slightly. This was the first time she had discussed her portrait in front of a male wizard of similar age and strength. "It was me. I commissioned a court painter to paint it when I first took over as the abbot of the library tower." Her face flushed slightly, but she picked up a cup of black tea from the table, took a small sip, poured Chris a cup, and changed the subject. "So, Chris, since you possess the strength of an elemental wizard, why do you need to come to the Tower of Libraries? What type of books do you want to borrow?" After all, once they reach the level of elemental wizards, they will generally choose to stay in a fixed location to conduct magical research. Some will also take on many disciples to pass on their knowledge or build a mage tower and live a secluded life, just to explore the truth of magic. The first and second floors of the library tower contain books intended for wizard apprentices, novice wizards, and full-fledged wizards. These are generally not of interest to elemental wizards. Looking at the steaming black tea in the teacup, which was 3/4 full, Chris remembered why he had come to the Tower of Books. "I've come to find information on the Blood God cult and the Shadow Harvest. I wonder if Miss Flavia has any recollection of them." He didn't feel thirsty, but he still picked up a teacup, pretended to take a sip, and then asked, "After all, the master of the Tower of Books is right in front of us, so it would be a waste of time to search for him on our own." Flavia raised her left hand and gently pressed it against the center of the pale red magic circle that appeared on her brow bone. At the same time, she closed her left eye and responded, "Oh, indeed, copies of information on these two organizations are included in the library tower. Since you've asked, I will naturally answer to the best of my knowledge." As Flavia finished speaking, the pale red magic circle began to operate rapidly. A miniature library tower appeared on the magic circle above her left eye, lifelike. Feeling the flow of immense magical power, Chris raised an eyebrow, his gaze filled with surprise. It wasn't the magnitude of the magical power that surprised me, but rather the precision with which the magic circle operated. The magic circle hovering over the left eye looked as if an entire tower had been placed inside it. It's incredible that such a tiny magic circle can be so highly condensed to depict such complex and enormous things. That wasn't some crude magic that could be cast simply by possessing innate magical power. Rather, it was the product of years of meticulous crafting and refinement. Upon first glance at how this magic worked, Chris could roughly understand its underlying principles. It was a special type of memory detection magic. Perhaps it's because of the recently upgraded skill Serpent Core that my perception has become more accurate, and my understanding of magic has also improved. Based on his past life experiences, he can now deduce the approximate function and purpose of a magic circle simply by observing its movement. The magic circle in Flavia's left eye was like a projection of a video from a specific location. However, one must have personally witnessed the event in order to be included in the video recording. The threshold is extremely high and there are many restrictions. Furthermore, it is not very useful in combat and is a type of auxiliary magic that no wizard would choose as their first choice. Unless one can multitask, it's practically impossible to flip through a book and cast a spell simultaneously during combat. Flavia, who is only around 20 years old, has already reached the rank of elemental wizard, and she even has time to study auxiliary magic at the same time. It seems that only a very small number of wizards who are exceptionally talented and diligent in their studies can become tower masters and are qualified to set up test projects. Chris secretly memorized the trajectory of the spell, determined not to be careless when facing an opponent of this caliber. I'd like to understand the origins and organizational structure of these two organizations, and if possible, I'd also like to figure out their activity patterns and dynamics. Seeing that Flavia's detection magic had finished operating, Chris voiced the question that had been lingering in his mind for a long time. Flavia nodded slightly. As her left index finger traced the specific incantation on the magic circle, the characters within the circle began to flow like water, with line after line of characters flashing continuously within the magic circle. Soon, as the light from the magic circle gradually faded, she opened her eyes, found it. Information on the Blood God Order and Shadow Harvest. As an elemental wizard, Flavia naturally knew that every wizard could potentially be on good terms with or at odds with certain organizations, so she wouldn't be so tactless as to ask the other party about their purpose in searching for relevant information. As fragments of information continued to flash through her mind, she quickly extracted the key information from various documents. According to long-term investigations by personnel from the Church and the Wizarding Association, the Blood God cult has a long history, originating from the ancient War of the Gods and worshipping the blood demon god Azimos, who was defeated in the battle. Although defeated for unknown reasons, his power did not vanish and has continued to this day. The Order aims to collect the scattered fragments of his divine power, attempting to grasp the root of blood magic, the resurrection of the demon god, through human sacrifice rituals. The organizational structure is divided into 7 levels: ordinary sacrifices, blood sacrifice apprentices, blood sacrifice masters, blood sacrifice envoys, blood god substitutes, and blood god bishops, popes. Each level gains power based on the scale and quality of the sacrifice. After quickly introducing the basic information, Flavia frowned slightly and added, "Furthermore, this organization is willing to cooperate with any illegal organization in exchange for benefits, which is one of the reasons for their rapid development in recent years." After a pause, Flavia noticed that Chris didn't seem to have any more questions, so she gently stroked the outside of the teacup with her right index finger and continued her explanation. Unlike cults with long histories and numerous achievements, Shadow Harvest is only known as an illegal organization that has emerged in recent years, primarily focused on assassinations. Internally, they are ranked based on mission success rates, and the latest investigative data is lacking. Chris was taken aback. He hadn't expected that there would be so much less information about Shadow Harvest than about the Order. The threat posed by that assassination attempt was clearly more dangerous than his previous encounters with the Blood God Order. Undeterred, he continued, "Could you please provide a general outline of the organizational structure or personnel composition?" Flavia smiled upon hearing this. "To obtain more clues, we'll probably need to find a specialized intelligence organization. While the library tower contains a considerable amount of information, it's quite large and only updated every few years." Seeing that Chris seemed unfamiliar with even the iconic library tower within the academy, Flavia became even more certain of her suspicions. The young wizard before me must be an ascetic who is naive and ignorant of the ways of the world. His long-term absence from classes is solely due to his focus on pursuing his own magical path, which is why he lacks the common understanding found in wizarding society. "Thank you so much for your help, Ms. Flavia. I have found the answer I was looking for." Chris thanked him, thinking that the order of the investigation was exactly as he had expected. Information about the ancient cult should be available in the library, while intelligence on the emerging assassination organization should naturally be sought from intelligence agencies. Intelligence organizations, naturally, operate in areas with high foot traffic and information flow, such as near the Adventurers Guild. Although he wanted to head straight to the Adventurers Guild to investigate, something else piqued his curiosity: the magic Flavia had just used. This was Chris's first time encountering high-level support magic, and he couldn't help but ask, "However, I'm still a little curious, what type of magic did you just use? I've never seen it before." "Just call me Flavia." "You're a strong person who passed the tests I set. There's no need to be so formal." As Flavia spoke, she picked up 2 hourglasses from beside the oak table and placed them in front of Chris. She smiled alluringly, feigning mystery, and said, "If you want to know, beat me in this game called Magic Hourglass, otherwise forget it." Flavia knew perfectly well that her passion for studying magic stemmed from a keen sense of kinship, which led her to repeatedly invite Chris to play games, test his true abilities, and thus engage in deeper communication. "A Magic Hourglass, how do you play this game?" Although he had no intention of competing in magical skill, Chris's growing curiosity about the game compelled him to ask. At the same time, he reached out with great interest to the stone hourglass on the table, wanting to examine it more closely. The moment my hand touched the hourglass, a familiar mechanical beep sounded in my ear. "A consumable magical item has been detected. Absorb it." Even the seemingly ordinary hourglass on the table is a magical item. Surprised by the profound knowledge of a Tower Master-level wizard, Chris raised an eyebrow slightly and looked in the direction of the voice. "Tide modifier, item analysis, item name, Orenda's key 12/magic echo hourglass item category, magical auxiliary tools, magic training tools, item level, high. Item description: a finely crafted magical tool shaped like an exquisite hourglass filled with astral sand extracted from a special plane, each grain containing subtle magical fluctuations. Item performance: quicksand initiation. As the key activation point of the magic circle in the Tower of Libraries, the Magic Echo Hourglass can activate and maintain the basic operation of the magic circle within the tower. The user must place the hourglass at the central node of the magic circle and guide the flow of sand through precise magic control, thereby awakening the dormant magical power within the tower. Magic Vortex: the hourglass is engraved with intricate gravity arrays at both ends. These arrays respond to the user's magical input, creating a magical vortex that causes the sand to flow rapidly inside the hourglass. By controlling this vortex, the user can hone their magical flow speed and control, thereby achieving greater efficiency and accuracy when casting spells. Astral sand: these precious materials from a special plane are the core of the Magic Echo Hourglass. Astral sand not only has excellent magic conduction efficiency, but it can also generate a unique magical resonance within the hourglass. This resonance has an indispensable auxiliary effect on cultivating magic power and improving magical skills. Item restrictions: Magic requirements. Due to the unique properties of astral sand, controlling the flow within the hourglass requires at least a stream level of magic power to ensure the gravity array and astral sand within the hourglass can be activated. Access activated. The key of Orenda's consists of two parts, with the magic echo hourglass being only one of them. Only the complete key of Orenda's can unlock the full functionality of the hourglass. In its current state, the hourglass's advanced functions are sealed. Only when the two keys are combined will the seal be broken, releasing the hourglass's full power. It turned out to be a high-level magical item, and it even had the effect of training. Although Chris had already learned the purpose of the magic hourglass through the system, he still waited quietly for Flavia's reply. If one could discern the true nature of a high-level magical item at first glance, it might arouse suspicion. It's best to conceal one's abilities. It's very simple. Just place your hand on the top of the hourglass, infuse it with magic to make the sand flow from the top to the bottom, and whoever finishes first wins. Flavia picked up an hourglass and placed it beside her, then stood up and explained. Using her special privileges as the Tower Master, she could sense Chris's extraordinary magical power the moment he entered the tower and during his passage through the trial ladder. Now, she will use this simple hourglass test to determine the opponent's magical level and decide who is superior. The emotions that filled my heart were partly curiosity and partly belligerence. After explaining the rules, Flavia narrowed her sharp red eyes, her gaze towards Chris filled with curiosity and a hint of fanaticism. Okay, I understand the rules. How about we use a coin toss to determine when the game starts? Chris nodded, took a gold coin from his pocket, rested it on his thumb, and asked, "Of course, as you wish." Having said that, Flavia's attention was now firmly focused on the gold coin in Chris's hand, ready to pounce. What astonishing mental strength, to be able to reach such a high level of mental concentration in an instant. Seeing Flavia enter battle mode, Chris couldn't help but admire her. At the same time, he placed his left hand on top of the hourglass and tossed the gold coin in his right hand into the air. Ding-dong tilde. As the crisp sound of gold coins striking the stone floor rang out, the two simultaneously began channeling magic into the top of the hourglass. Even though they started injecting magic at the same time, Chris, who was part of the referee who determined the start time of the match by flipping a coin, didn't gain the upper hand and instead started the match at the same time as his opponent. Not daring to be careless, this was also Chris's first time fighting against a powerful wizard who was both an elemental wizard and a tower master. A continuous flow of magic surged from his limbs and bones into his left palm. Chris closed his eyes and focused intently. Meanwhile, the astral sands in the hourglass began to move extremely slowly, falling one by one into the space below. As the initiator of the game, Flavia, who has been using hourglasses to hone her magic over the years, has an advantage in proficiency. Countless tiny grains of sand under her precise magical control were arranged neatly in order, spiraling down the walls of the upper part of the hourglass to the bottom. If the gravel under Flavia's command was a well-organized, regular army, then the army Chris now controls is a disorganized, chaotic mob. They must find the pattern to control this special astral sand as soon as possible. Although he hadn't seen Flavia inject magic into it, Chris had already anticipated that he would fall far behind. As the cycle of infusing magic into each grain of sand repeated itself, a tiny bead of sweat slid down Chris's forehead. Even with an unlimited supply of his own magic power, the nature of this competition limited his performance. The extremely subtle requirements for mental control are still too mentally taxing for me at my current level. Just then, an idea popped into Chris's mind. Sand can form the earth and the earth can form the surface of a planet. If we can control the movement of a planet, is it equivalent to moving all the sand on that planet? This idea came from Chris's recently acquired skill, Serpent Core. Without hesitation, Chris activated the skill Serpent Star Core, and the magic power within his body began to gather into a sphere, growing larger and larger. Immediately afterwards, the skills Breath of Fire and Serpent Meditation were activated simultaneously. A fire serpent made of fire attribute magic coiled above the magic sphere within the body, guiding the flow of the vast magic power inside. Inside the hourglass, due to the abnormal changes within Chris's body, some of the astral sand affected by the fire attribute began to move restlessly. More astral sand, however, floats in the air above the hourglass, forming a spherical sand pile. Atop the sand dune, a slender figure gradually emerged, a serpent formed from sand infused with fire attribute magic, the serpent of flame sand. Flavia, on the other side, was also concentrating on channeling her magic, but being far ahead, she still managed to glance at Chris's condition. And upon looking at it, they were stunned. The sand that was originally laid flat at the bottom of the space above Chris's hourglass is now all suspended in the air, forming a circular sand pile. The surface of the sand pile expanded several times, even squeezing the boundary inside the hourglass. Only upon closer inspection can one discover that only the surface layer of sand is rotating and moving at an extremely high frequency under the control of magic, with the first movement influencing the movement of the next. At the bottom of the sand dune, a dark red snake-like shadow emerged and suddenly rushed towards the bottom. The circular sand mound at the rear continuously propels the sand and gravel inside forward, forming the subsequent snake-like body. This is a clever trick Chris used. It's like putting sand in a bag, then simply injecting magic into the bag and controlling its movement, causing the sand inside to move naturally as well. While this magical method allows for the skillful movement of sand and gravel, it also consumes magical energy exponentially. Because using one grain of sand to propel several grains of sand forward would consume many times more magic power, the efficiency would be extremely low under the same magic power conditions, far beyond the magic power consumption that an elemental wizard could afford. Coincidentally, Chris is not afraid of such a large consumption of magic power. On the contrary, he is more afraid of a large consumption of mental energy. Therefore, by simulating the scenarios activated by magic skills, one can leverage their strengths and compensate for their weaknesses, allowing them to thrive. As the fiery gravel serpent plunged into the bottom of the hourglass, countless grains of sand were continuously propelled down its body, rapidly narrowing the gap between the two. This bizarre sight caught Flavia's eye, and although her subordinates didn't stop channeling magic, they still widened their eyes in astonishment. She had never encountered such a situation before in her more than 10 years of wizarding practice. Under the traditional teachings they have always received, every wizard has dedicated themselves to improving the efficiency of their magical abilities, one after another. They strive to maximize the use of every drop of magic, even making one drop count as two. The only thing that might be slightly wasted is ritual magic, which serves in Legion wars. However, that is based on the use of magic in a collaborative manner among multiple people, rather than a single, complete magical construct. Chris's method of using magic as if it consumed nothing completely shattered Flavia's years of accumulated experience in magic usage, leaving her utterly astonished. As expected, my magical perception inside the tower was accurate. The wizard's magical power before me was like a dormant volcano ready to erupt at any moment. Flavia's eyes showed admiration, but she was not careless at all, fighting tenaciously based on the advantage she had built up through proficiency in the early stages of the match. Feeling the smooth flow of his own magic, Chris skillfully manipulated the flame serpent, taking a moment to check on Flavia's condition beside him. Although the gap between the two sides was constantly narrowing, the opponent still had a significant advantage established in the early stages of the match due to their proficiency. If this continues, the odds of winning for both sides will be roughly equal, and the outcome will be left to so-called fate to decide. Fate has always been a tool of the strong and a shackle for the weak. Chris couldn't accept that his fate would once again be handed over to some ethereal being. He wanted to take control of his own destiny. Driven by a fierce competitive spirit, Chris resolutely summoned the vast planet in his consciousness. The boundless land and sea covered it, and a huge black statue lay across the sea. At Chris's call, not only the sky, the ocean, and the earth, but even the planet itself began to tremble violently. As the amplitude of vibration between different things continues to increase, the frequencies of vibration also become closer and closer, until they eventually form a state of complete coordination resonance at the same frequency. A tremendous driving force suddenly emerged, and the entire planet's existence, its physical form, began its first rotation. With the Star Council as the fixed location, the entire planet began to rotate counterclockwise from west to east. At the same time, in the real world, the frequency of the magic within Chris's body also began to increase, further enhancing the purity and precision of the magic. Feeling the immense power surging within him, Chris's eyes sharpened. He raised his right hand and placed it on the back of his left, accelerating the transfer of magic. A strange phenomenon occurred. The sandpile, which was originally spherical and was gradually decreasing in size due to the movement of the fiery gravel serpent, suddenly appeared a second serpent shadow above the sandpile. If we compare the movement of the first flame gravel serpent to a snake carrying a bag, then the appearance of the second flame gravel serpent is like pushing the bag from behind. With a pull and a push from the two fiery gravel serpents, the sand pile composed of astral sand instantly changed from a sphere to a gourd shape, and the consumption rate skyrocketed. In an instant, all the astral sand above Chris's hourglass was moved to the bottom. In fact, Chris's series of actions were completed in just a few seconds. From Flavia's perspective, Chris simply placed his right hand on top of his left, and then the game ended. Although she followed suit and finished the race, being defeated by someone who came from behind in her strongest area was still an unprecedented experience. What a brilliant comeback! I never imagined magic could be used in such a bizarre way. Flavia was lavish in her appreciation, her praise overflowing. Thank goodness. In that case, Flavia, you can tell me the origin of the magic in your left eye, right? Chris loosened his grip on the hourglass, raised his hand and flicked it in the air, instantly relieving much of the fatigue in his hand. I lost this magic hourglass race. A bet's a bet, so I'll tell you the origin of the magic circle on my left eye. Flavia reached out her right hand and smoothed her beautiful, flowing silver hair, responding readily, and then began to explain. The magic previously activated on my left eye, called Memory Echo, can project scenes I've witnessed into the present in high definition under specified conditions. Furthermore, it can activate a key to this array through specific incantations, precisely retrieving desired information fragments from a vast memory bank. Chris heard Flavia's explanation of her magic, which was not much different from his own deduction, and became convinced that his judgment had improved further. However, what he didn't know was that this seemingly quick and calm confrontation opened a new world for Flavia, and from then on, things spiraled out of control. But Chris, why are you interested in such an unorthodox support magic? Do you want to learn from me? Flavia put the two hourglasses back aside and asked with a smile. I'd like to learn, but I don't know if I can master it or if you'd be willing to teach me. Without any pretense, Chris spoke his mind directly. Actually, learning this type of magic isn't too difficult. The Memory Echo I currently possess is an advanced spell within the memory system. If it's a beginner-level spell, simple practice is all it takes. For convenience, one can even use the imbuing method of advanced memory system magic to cleverly force those who have never been exposed to it into the basics. This is also a characteristic of the memory-based school of magic. After casually answering Chris's question, Flavia changed the subject. But if you want me to teach you the basics of this magic, you should offer something of equal value, shouldn't you? Equivalent exchange is a common understanding in the wizarding world, one that even a 3-year-old child knows by heart. Chris had wanted to learn this magic ever since he saw Flavia use it. When questioned, Chris simply took out a pair of clear crystal eyes and gently placed them on the table. Is the Eye of Erex, a material dropped by the A-rank monster Erex Queen, worth enough? Memory-type magic, while not very effective in actual combat, serves as a supplementary effect, allowing one to record a great deal of information that is difficult to memorize so that it can be retrieved at any time. For Chris, who possesses memories of his past life, learning this magic is like having a tool to consult relevant guides at any time. and it also solves the problem of having to memorize information by rote when searching for data. An equivalent exchange was expected, but the mod and related magic skills could not be exposed, and he would not teach magic. Each piece of equipment had its own purpose, so the only thing he could show off was this A-grade monster material. Although precious, crafting magical items requires time and money, which is far less helpful than the immediate skill boost. After all, money is only truly yours when it's spent. Flavia glanced at the materials on the table, nodded slightly, and her silver hair swayed back and forth. Equivalent exchange is not only about the objective value of the goods themselves in society, but also about the subjective value judgments of the two parties involved regarding the exchanged items. Now, Flavia, a passionate magic researcher, is clearly very satisfied with the outcome of this equivalent exchange. Satisfied, she said, "That's enough, come closer and close your left eye." Flavia cast the spell again and the pale red magic circle above her left eye reappeared, but it did not activate. Instead, it gradually disintegrated, returning to its initial state as the spell had begun. Soon, a white magic circle appeared above her left eye. Chris obediently took 2 steps forward, closed his left eye, but his other senses were amplified and he felt a sweet fragrance of roses waft towards him. They could faintly hear the other person's rapid heartbeat even when they were very close. Flavia imprinted the white magic circle onto her palm with runes, then raised her right hand and pressed it towards Chris's left eye. A flash of white light appeared and the same magic circle appeared above Chris's left eye. The white primordial magic circle began to circulate, gradually merging with the magic power within Chris's body. As waves of unfamiliar memories flooded in, the usage of the new skill gradually took shape in Chris's mind. The instant the skill transfer was completed, he seemed to sense something and looked at the system interface. Tide modifier, current skill, skill name, echoes of memories, skill category, support magic. Skill level, beginner skill description. Echoes of memory is a rudimentary form of memory magic that allows the user to revisit and observe events they have personally experienced in specific environments. By setting specific incantations and activating key points, this skill can extract and display past scenes from the memory bank to aid in current decision-making or research. Skill effects, environment retrospection, revisit and recreate past scenes at a designated location and display them in the form of images. Information extraction, by activating the array's core with specific incantations, key information fragments can be extracted from the memory bank. Upgrade path. Through continuous learning and practice, the Echo of Memory can be upgraded to a more advanced memory system, Magic Memory Echo, which will have a wider range of applications and deeper analytical capabilities. Upon seeing the system's detailed explanation, Chris understood and recalled the storage device from his past life's memories. If we were to compare Flavia's mastery of memory echoes to a machine built into her brain with 1000 GB of RAM and a 4K display screen. So the new skill I just mastered, Echoes of Memory, is like having a machine built into my brain with 10 GB of RAM and a 2K display. Although he can acquire a new skill without personally practicing it, the corresponding skill effect will be much weaker. I understand how to use the skill Echoes of Memory. How long would it take to master Echoes of Memory to its full potential? Seeing that Flavia had thoughtfully transferred the relevant memories of skill usage along with the skills, Chris also asked a question. Upon hearing this, Flavia, having completed the magic instruction, withdrew her right hand and sighed helplessly. While the memory system of magic is primarily used for support, progress is extremely slow. I started practicing this magic from a young age, and generally it takes about 10 years to advance from basic memory magic to the intermediate level. Advanced levels require talent and exceptional opportunity. Chris frowned slightly. He had originally planned to take some time to improve the performance of the new device, but he hadn't expected that it would not only require a lot of time to upgrade, but also that his own hardware was up to par. Fortunately, I can use the deep development function to directly deduce a completely new skill, avoiding the time-consuming process of accumulating skill experience. Okay, I've benefited a lot from this exchange. I'll digest it properly when I get back. Chris took 2 steps back, rubbed his slightly tired left eye, and prepared to take his leave. Not at all, it's your magical abilities that truly amaze me. Feel free to visit anytime, Chris. Flavia didn't try to stop her and simply nodded. After saying goodbye, Chris quickly walked out of the library tower along the normal spiral staircase. He had important business to attend to. Information regarding Shadow Harvest is not yet confirmed, but if the Blood God Order is found, its information will not be too far off, and vice versa. Outside the tower, several apprentice wizards who had just been expelled at the start of the trial ceremony stared at Chris with strange looks. Then they all made way for him without prior arrangement. Regardless of whether Chris successfully passed the stairway to trial, anyone who could emerge unscathed after the trial began was someone they couldn't afford to mess with at their current level. Chris paid no attention to the group of naive student wizards and walked straight through them toward the Adventurers Guild in the center of Gar City. Just as Chris stepped out of the academy gates, a familiar figure appeared in front of him. I had met him a few times before. He was the church's official agent and the patrol squad leader. Upon seeing the familiar wizard approaching, Adrian, carrying a greatsword on his back, remained expressionless and quickly handed Chris a map. Something's happened. Chris stopped, instinctively took the map, and asked in confusion, "What happened?" An entire village was sacrificed by the cult. Their blood flowed down the river to neighboring villages. We've only just received the news and are preparing to mobilize for the upcoming mission. The concise and refined words came from Adrian's mouth, and the map he handed over was carefully marked with the location of the victim village, which was only 2 kilometers away from Gal City. Having received this intelligence, I imagine you, with your previous interactions with the Blood God cult, would find this information useful. Of course, the choice of whether or not to go is yours. Without lingering, as if he were merely delivering a routine message, Adrian glanced in their direction and left without looking back, his arrival and departure fleeting. Chris frowned, suddenly recalling the first fragment of the oracle he received when he became a trainee agent at the Church of Glory. On the blood-red earth, torrential rain could not wash away the boundless crimson, and lightning illuminated a farm surrounded by windmills. According to the name of the village where the murders were recorded on the map Adrian just handed over, it was Windmill Village. The scene described in the first fragment of the oracle's memory has truly become a reality. Chris was deeply shocked. He gritted his teeth, not expecting the Blood God Order to act so swiftly. If I don't do something quickly, it's foreseeable that the scene in the second fragment of the oracle's memory will also become reality. In the abandoned city, there are broken churches, collapsed bell towers, and homeless people. Even if he could give up his connections and studies here, the deep-seated hatred between him and the cult was already set in stone and unavoidable. We must act quickly. With a thought, the familiar little black, which had been lurking in the student dormitory, instantly took to the air and hovered above the entire city of Gal. At the same time, Chris activated the breath of fire to its maximum, and a dazzling fireball shot straight into the sky, exploding in all directions like fireworks with tremendous force. Seeing the familiar magical fluctuations emanating from the distant city of Gar, a massive wolf deep within the monster forest sensed something. Ow! As sharp howls echoed, a large pack of wolves began their march towards Gar. Chris pointed a single finger to the sky, then withdrew it after setting off his fireworks. Now that the cult has made its first move, the scheme it has laid out should gradually take effect. A glint of murderous intent flashed in Chris's eyes, and he immediately changed direction, preparing to head towards the southern gate of Gar City. Along the way, there were far fewer people than usual, and even the Adventurers Guild was closed. Could it be that even within the city of Gal, something unusual is beginning to happen? Chris quickly used the aerial vision provided by his familiar little black above his head to check the surrounding situation. Everything seemed normal, but that was the biggest anomaly. Feeling uneasy, Chris quickened his pace toward the city gate, starting to jog. When he arrived at the city gate, he did not see any guards. Only a few heads hung silently above the city gate, swaying in the wind. The most conspicuous head among them was none other than the severed head of Adrian, the official agent who had gone to provide support after their earlier conversation. Chris's pupils contracted slightly as his eyes scanned the mist behind the city gate. The current situation was exactly. They've arrived? A light mist lingered around the city of Gal, and a familiar scent of blood wafted into Chris's nostrils. Although the scenery outside the city is invisible, the view inside the city gates is completely visible from the familiar's aerial perspective. A wisp of white mist lingered at the city gate, blurring the surrounding scenery at a glance. There's a big problem here. With his eyes closed, Chris slowly channeled wisps of magic into the familiar amplification bracelet, afraid it would burst. The field of vision instantly became incredibly wide, and the surrounding scenery became clearer and clearer as magic was gradually infused into it, like a telescope being adjusted. It seems that since reaching the system-approved formal wizard level, even the abilities of my familiars have been significantly enhanced. After looking around, Chris quickly noticed something was wrong. The quantity is incorrect. A few minutes ago, Adrian did indeed lead a joint party of church members and adventurers through this area. Adding the number of guards originally stationed at the city gate, it's impossible that there were only these few heads. Even the remains and equipment had disappeared. Chris looked out into the mist through the open city gate once more, recalling the location of Windmill Village on the map he had just seen. It was situated between Gar City and the neighboring trading city of Saphir. Adrian's team was heading to Windmill Village to investigate. It was virtually impossible for a fully armed team to disappear silently within the city. If they encounter an unexpected situation at the city gate, they are more likely to call for help from inside the city. More likely, the fog only began to spread after they successfully left the city gates and set out on their journey. From this perspective, it seems more like the blood god cult deliberately spread rumors about the bloody sacrifice at Windmill Village to lure the forces within Gar City to investigate and provide support. But what exactly is the cult's purpose in doing this? As Chris pondered this, a sudden realization struck him. They were trying to lure the snake out of its hole, to lure the tiger away from the mountain. Gazing at the city gate covered with human heads, he quietly took 2 steps back, hid in the shadows of a street corner, and looked at the city gate again. Sure enough, after moving a certain distance from the city gate, it became clear that the heads hanging on the gate did not resemble Adrian and his companions, but rather belonged to the city guards. It is an illusionary formation within a limited area. Ordinary people who enter it will be mentally affected and find it difficult to fight normally. The goal was to trap the people of Gal within the city walls, preventing them from entering and wiping them out in one fell swoop. In this way, Gar City is like an open bag. The Order only needs to guard the illusion circle at the bag's opening, and they can fight on their home turf and have the upper hand. Suddenly, the fog outside the city surged, seemingly threatening to invade the city. Seeing this, Chris no longer hesitated. He turned his wizard apprentice robe inside out to conceal his identity and took out a red goat mask with his right hand, putting it on his face. Donning the mask once more, signifying his status as a blood priest of the cult, streams of red spiritual energy suddenly began to frantically invade his consciousness. The curse that had been dormant within the mask was inexplicably activated, but the Chris of today was far more powerful than the apprentice wizard he once was. Within the consciousness space, the massive planet rotated slightly, and the wisps of crimson spiritual energy were instantly submerged by a vast blue torrent, leaving no trace. Click! A crisp cracking sound rang out from inside the mask. Thankfully, it didn't completely fall apart. Chris also glanced at the system interface. Item name, Blood God's Loyal Servant. Damaged item level, intermediate item performance, magic amplification. When worn, it temporarily increases magic power and enhances magical effects. Mark of Loyalty. Wearing this mark will make you a loyal follower of the Blood God cult and may attract the attention of other members of the cult. The curse effect that was originally on the mask was forcibly erased. Fortunately, the other 2 functions were not affected, allowing my plans to proceed smoothly. The church and academy both have corresponding levels of combat power stationed there. As long as I keep up with the main force of the Blood God Order, I can play a role at crucial moments. Just then, a series of hurried footsteps came from the city gate. Hearing the direction from which the sound came, Chris shrank even further into the shadows, making sure not to show his face, relying solely on his familiar hidden high in the sky to survey the entire scene. The fog not only obstructed the view of those inside the city when trying to leave, but it also hindered the view of those outside the city when trying to enter. Chris touched the goat horns on his mask. In the mist, their method of sensing friend from foe was very likely based on the aura of the markings on the masks. Once the enemy enters the city, the cult members cannot maintain a single continuous force, they will likely split up and act separately. That will be the time for me to infiltrate them. 1, 2, 3. Figures emerged one after another from the mist outside the city and walked straight into the city gate. The first group of over 50 men in black entered the city, their figures disappearing into the streets and alleys as the fog spread into the city. Chris immediately recognized the uniform style of the daggers in their hands. He had experience fighting against wielders of this type of dagger, so this was clearly someone from the Shadow Harvest organization. As an assassination organization, the fact that they dispatched as many as 50 assassins demonstrates their formidable strength. Chris took a deep breath and suppressed the urge to act immediately. His subconscious told him that the bigger fish was yet to come. The second group, consisting of 21 people wearing goat masks and red robes, slowly approached, each carrying an identical staff. They formed 7 groups of 3 and entered the city gate in sequence. Chris mentally calculated that he had defeated a total of 3 blood priest-level opponents, a young man, a young girl, and a giant. There were now 21 blood priests before them. But the first thought that popped into my mind was they've become wealthy. Looking at the 21 human-shaped money trees in the distance, Chris swallowed hard, reminding himself not to be careless. The third group consisted of 2 middle-aged men dressed in black-patterned red robes who walked out and headed towards the Church of Glory in the north of Gar City and the Adventurers Guild in the center, respectively. Chris was taken aback. This group consisted of only 2 people, clearly the core members of the cult. But why hadn't anyone chosen to go to the wizarding academy they were attending? Without time to think, the 2 figures blurred and quickly disappeared at the end of the street. Seeing that there were no more people to go on stage, Chris took 2 steps, hesitating about which location to go to for assistance first. The next moment, an extremely strong stench of blood wafted from the city gate. Chris was startled and looked down again through the aerial view. The real big fish has come in. The last group to enter the city was an elderly man in a white robe. He didn't stop at all and headed directly towards the eastern commercial street and slums. Instead of attacking the church, academy, and adventurers guild where their main fighting forces were located, they chose to target the area with the most civilians. How ruthless! Chris's pupils contracted and he quietly followed behind the old man. The old man in white robes walked slowly, leisurely heading towards the slums. Since things had come to this, Chris wasn't in a hurry. He steadied his breathing and followed suit. If the Blood God cult is so adept at knowing the situation inside Gar City, they must have spies within the city. Following the white-robed elder, the most powerful figure in the cult's operation, would undoubtedly make it the easiest way to encounter their inside agents and gain timely control over their strongest combat force, a win-win situation. According to the Blood God ritual, only believers of the Blood God Order at the level of Blood God Compensator or above are qualified to wear the white robes, which is equivalent to elemental wizards in the wizarding class. The blood magic used by the cult can enhance their spells with blood, making them highly effective in large-scale battles, especially in indiscriminate melees and massacres. However, there were at least 3 individuals in the city of Gal who were of equal status to the white-robed elder. Why would a leader of such a high rank risk his life? Just as Chris felt a little puzzled, the white-robed old man in the distance suddenly stopped and turned around sharply. At the same time, the mist separating the 2 instantly dissipated, revealing everything. You straggling blood priests, instead of going back to carry out your missions, what are you doing following this old man here? The white-robed old man's eyes were sharp as he looked directly at where Chris was. Chris neither dodged nor flinched but slowly stepped out of the shadows and calmly looked at the other person. I left something behind and am going to retrieve it. Oh, did you leave behind your red robe? The old man in white robes sharpened his eyes and turned to walk over. At this moment, Chris was wearing a black robe inside out, while according to the order's rules, followers of the blood priest rank should wear red robes, yet he was also wearing a genuine goat's head mask. It's a white robe. He shook his head, and the three words that Chris uttered so casually were like a thunderclap. The old man in white robes gradually stopped, and instead of being angry, he smiled. It was you. Upon learning of your victory over my disciple Ammon, I intended to grant you membership according to the rules of our order, but unfortunately I have received no response. What, you only think of this now that disaster is upon you? Chris thought for a moment, recalling the faces of the three blood priests he had defeated, but he hadn't personally witnessed the death of the young man from the first encounter. Eamon, he's not dead. The old man in white robes gave a forced smile and replied, dead, with a missing hand, he's naturally no longer capable. It's better for him to become my nourishment and live on. You are capable of killing him and are qualified to serve as a blood priest in our order. Come. He stretched out a withered left hand toward Chris, a faint mist of blood condensing behind him. If I can kill you too, then shouldn't I be the one to take the place of the blood god's substitute? Chris extended his left palm as if preparing to shake hands with the other person, but spoke calmly. You're asking for it. With a wave of his left hand, a crimson magic circle appeared behind the white-robed elder, unleashing a burst of blood mist that hissed as it rubbed against the air. Chris extended his left palm horizontally. An explosive flame barrier was activated instantly. A blazing wall of fire instantly appeared between the two of them, slowly pushing forward. Boom, boom, boom! While blocking the blood mist, the booming explosions continued to approach the enemy as the wall of fire moved forward. The white-robed elder's killing intent intensified. His signature killing move had been cleverly neutralized by the young man before him using attribute advantage, which enraged him. To actually block my attack, you're impressive. No wonder Ammon was defeated by you, it's just a pity you ran into me. Before he could finish speaking, a sharp explosion suddenly drowned out the white-robed old man's voice, and a blazing red flame suddenly burst out from behind the wall of fire, piercing through his chest. Then, the still powerful impact dragged its body into the air, drawing a figure 7 with its tail flames before crashing to the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust as fast as a shooting star. The white-robed old man who had been talking so eloquently was knocked into the ground by Chris's triple wave technique and fell silent. If the white-robed elder is the boss in this mission, then Chris is the boss the entire mission must face. I don't have the habit of remembering the names of dead people. As he spoke, Chris strode toward the crater he had created with his magic. Just then, the white-robed old man who had been silent suddenly exploded, dispersing into a cloud of blood mist. When he reappeared, he was already dozens of meters away. The cultists who reached the level of blood god compensators were indeed remarkably resilient. Even with their chests completely pierced, they were still able to use magic to escape, displaying a peculiar skill. The white-robed elder was filled with terror. He used his teleportation spell to traverse the mist, frantically fleeing towards the Adventurers Guild. He knew that only those involved could understand the decisive difference represented by that thunderous strike. A horrifying hole appeared in the chest of his aged body, yet no blood flowed out. Instead, it was slowly healing. The moment Chris's attack arrived, he had no time to defend himself. His 5 basic magic items, 3 intermediate magic items, and 1 advanced magic item that were meant to protect him were instantly destroyed, barely saving his life. Furthermore, as the blood god's substitute, the fragments of the blood god's torso he possesses can greatly enhance his torso, making his defense and recovery speed extremely strong. If the opponent had targeted the head and limbs, areas beyond the range of the enhanced weapon, he had no doubt that he would be facing certain death at that moment. But he didn't want to die yet. So many lives had been sacrificed to get to this point, and he had to complete the final sacrificial array. Fortunately, a large illusionary magic circle had been set up from the beginning, and the mist within it had spread throughout the entire city of Gal. This was highly compatible with his specialty, blood magic, giving him a chance to escape. As he ran, the old man in white robes kept glancing behind him, afraid of being caught up. At the same time, he pulled a dark red whistle from his hair and blew it suddenly. Whoosh, whoosh, a sharp whistle carrying a magical wave echoed throughout the entire city of Gal. After the whistle blew, the 5 closest men in black received the call and appeared on the street ahead, daggers in hand. Stop him. The old man in white robes pointed behind him, hurriedly gave his orders, and continued running backward without stopping. He knew that the key to his survival and rise to his current position within the blood-loving blood god cult was the escape technique he had spent years mastering. The next moment, a red fire tornado shot into the sky, and the resulting fire wave turned the 5 assassins who blocked its path into ashes, sweeping towards the white-robed old man. Meanwhile, in a secret room on the 3rd floor of the library tower at the Octavian Wizarding Academy. Feeling a familiar surge of magical energy suddenly erupt, Flavia closed the book of construction and looked out the window. Is it him? What on earth happened to cause such a violent conflict within the city? Red eyes gazed at the pair of neatly arranged transparent crystal eyes on the table, her slender fingers tracing the hourglass that still held Chris's lingering magic. This morning I was originally going to the neighboring trading city of Saphir to buy magical items to complete my research. However, thanks to the young wizard this morning, the Eye of Erex and A-grade monster material will be the final piece of the puzzle to complete my research. If he encounters trouble, I should lend a hand so that he owes me a favor, which will facilitate further in-depth exchanges on the path of wizardry in the future. With that thought in mind, Flavia walked to the window of the room, stepped onto the windowsill with her black boots and used her flying spell to leap down. The whistling wind accentuated her slender figure beneath her long robe. With her strength, she could reach the location emanating the magical fluctuations in just the time it takes for an incense stick to burn and investigate further. Just as they were passing by the college gate, an aged voice came from the watchtower next to the gate. Master of the Tower of Libraries, didn't you report to the academy that you were going to Saphir next door this morning? Where are you headed in such a hurry now? Flavia floated in midair and turned her head to look. She saw an old man in a dark gray mage's robe standing in the center of the tower, facing the wind. A bright red flame was prominently displayed on the back of his robe. He was none other than Stuart, a fellow elemental wizard and colleague in charge of teaching ritual magic. What, do I have to report to you where I'm going? Raising an eyebrow, Flavia asked without any politeness. Although both are elemental level, a tower master level wizard and an ordinary elemental wizard are not on the same level of strength at all, not to mention that the other party is an old relic who studies ritual formations. How could I dare restrict the tower master's freedom? It's just that the city is in constant turmoil and the academy probably needs your presence to keep things under control. Stuart looked up at Flavia in the air and asked without emotion. The academy has its own protective array. You just need to guard the array and the main gate. I'll be right back. Flavia didn't want to waste any more words, so she left with a single sentence and flew straight ahead. If you won't listen to reason, you'll have to suffer the consequences. Don't even think about leaving. A furious shout rang out and Stuart behind him suddenly activated the protective magic array set up on the watchtower. A bowl-shaped curtain of azure water instantly covered the entire academy, separating it from the outside world. What do you mean by that, Stuart? The sudden appearance of the water curtain naturally had little effect on Flavia, who was at the tower master level. She stopped abruptly in midair, turned around angrily, and questioned him. What I mean is, you just stay inside this protective shield. Someone will deal with you after things outside are over. Stuart sneered and activated the teleportation array beneath his feet. Taking the key that could activate the academy's protective array, he teleported directly outside the protective shield. Although the Academy's protective shield can block most attacks and magic, anyone carrying the key to activate the magic circle can freely enter and exit. So, it turns out you've been the one letting wolves into the house all along. Who are you colluding with, the Blood God cult or the South Daxia Sea clan? Flavia's heart sank and she shouted sharply. Unexpectedly, the other party colluded with external forces and even dared to use the Academy's protective array to trap her inside. Since the key is not inside the protective shield, it cannot close or reopen the shield on its own. It can only wait for its operating energy to be exhausted. However, this protective formation was originally set up by the 10 Tower Masters of the Wizarding Association. Even if she used all her strength, it would be difficult for her to break through the formation and escape in a short time. If you forcibly deplete all the energy of the protective array to break it, not only will the battle outside be over, but the protective shield will also lose its ability to protect the people inside, truly killing two birds with one stone. To have an entire city used as my experimental subjects, the thought is actually quite exciting. As for you, enjoy your final moments, Tower Master. Stuart deliberately emphasized the last two words, Tower Master, and laughed loudly, looking towards the whistle coming from the direction of the Adventurers Guild to the south before happily departing. He had studied ritual magic for many years, and in order to test the limits of ritual magic, he finally focused on the idea of increasing the amount of magic power injected to experiment with new arrays. However, in his experiments, the pure infusion of magic power could not fill the circuits of ritual magic to maximize its power. Therefore, he thought of collecting the blood and souls of living people to use as disposable consumables that cannot be absorbed by the human body but can be absorbed by the magic circle, so as to fill the magic circle with magic power more efficiently. In order to obtain more experimental materials, he did not hesitate to secretly join forces with the Blood God cult, each getting what they wanted. Watching Stuart's retreating figure, Flavia's face turned ashen. She turned and flew back into the Tower of Libraries. Gar City, Central District outside the Adventurers Guild. An elderly man in white robes flew backwards from a distance, tracing a graceful parabola in the air before crashing heavily to the ground, covered in dust. This person was the leader of the cult, a blood god compensator-level organization who was blasted away by the shockwave from Chris's flame feather robe's scorching wing attack. The fiery red tornado was unstoppable, leaving him with only his upper body. His lower body had completely disappeared. Seeing the fiery red figure gradually approaching in the distance, the white-robed elder felt his liver and gallbladder tremble with fear and hurriedly pulled out his last trump card, Demon Summoning. In addition to sacrificing to the blood god, the Order's blood magic also involves sacrificing a demon slightly stronger than itself to gain summoning privileges at irregular intervals. The more powerful the demon, the longer the interval between summoning sessions. At this critical moment of life and death, he did not hesitate to stick out his tongue, which was engraved with a black and red pentagram, and activate the magic array on it. A pitch-black magic circle covered the entire Adventurers Guild, and a demon with a jet-black body, 2 wings on its back, and a single horn on its head descended from the sky, exuding the terrifying aura unique to high-level demons. Taking advantage of the lull in the high-ranking demon's appearance, the white-robed elder shakily propped himself up with his hands and used bleeding magic to fill the missing part below his chest with blood, barely regaining normal mobility. Seeing the dark magic sweep across the entire area, he secretly breathed a sigh of relief. This high-level demon, which could only be summoned once every 10 years, could at least guarantee his safety. The fiery red figure, which was still in the distance, suddenly blurred and appeared in front of the white-robed old man in the blink of an eye. Chris looked down at the white-robed old man before him and slowly flapped the pair of wings made of flames on his back. The single fiery wing on its back, propelled by its movement, stretched 3 meters in length and emitted a breathtaking heat wave. The fiery wings were raised high, brimming with explosive power, and slashed down directly at the panicked old man, creating a whirlwind of destruction. The massive shockwave it generated split the entire deserted Adventurers Guild in two, At the critical moment, a jet-black arm appeared in front of the firewing, attempting to block the attack. Boom! The blazing wings of fire descended without hindrance, creating a massive shockwave. A 3-meter-tall, one-horned demon stood before the white-robed elder. It was a high-level demon that had just been summoned. Its left arm, which had been extending from the side to block the flow, was severed cleanly, the cut as smooth as a mirror from which black blood dripped continuously. The white-robed elder behind him was also sliced in half by the aftershock of the attack, leaving only a quarter of his body, and was about to die on the spot. Upon seeing the white-robed elder's life force rapidly fading, the one-horned demon quickly raised its right hand and pointed at the mangled body. A surge of black magic enveloped the shattered form into a black sphere, halting the continued loss of blood. Then, it manipulated the black sphere to come in front of itself, opened its blood-red maw and swallowed it whole. Demon possession is a special ability that a demon bestows upon its followers. This ability grants the summoner a temporary body and demonic power, but at the cost of losing control of the body and surrendering it entirely to the possessing demon. Now, the unicorn demon uses demon possession in reverse, sacrificing the summoner's entire life and soul to keep them alive within its own body, thus completely descending into the human plane. Soon, nourished by the flesh and soul of a blood god compensator, its aura rose steadily, and its severed left hand regenerated as the flesh writhed at the wound. It's been a long time since I've been out in the human world for some fresh air. This summoner even had a timely near-death experience, allowing me to have a good meal. I really need to thank you. The one-horned demon stretched its limbs, patted its belly, and looked at Chris, who was flapping its fiery wings with lingering satisfaction. When it was first summoned, it could only exert a small portion of its power, so it was completely unable to withstand that level of fiery wing attack and lost an arm. But now, taking advantage of the summoner's near death, it devoured their flesh and blood and reversed the demon possession, allowing it to descend in near-peak form. Unexpectedly, there was a pleasant surprise. After it had completely digested the black sphere, it spat out 2 treasures, an ancient ring and a fragment that emitted a faint purple light. The ring is shaped like a red pupil and is as black as ink. You're welcome, you. Ate him, seeing the demon swallow the white-robed old man and then strangely spit out 2 odd items, Chris asked warily. Insignificant humans, do you remember how much food you've eaten? The one-horned demon tapped its head with its sharp fingernails and responded disdainfully, for in its prime it feared no one present. Staring at the ring in the other person's hand, Chris sensed a strange magical fluctuation, as if it contained a life force. He suddenly remembered that the shape of the ring in front of him was that of a holy relic-level magical artifact that the church had recently stolen. Many agents had been searching for it for many days, and it had finally come to light. Unexpectedly, the white-robed elder hid the ring inside his body, and it disappeared even after being divided into 4 parts. It only reappeared after the demon had absorbed his flesh and blood. Based on the mission description at the time, the ring was extremely dangerous, and it was imperative to retrieve it as soon as possible and evacuate the crowd. Thinking of this, Chris suddenly flapped his wings, instantly teleporting to the front of the one-horned demon. His 2 fiery wings crossed to form a cross shape, aiming straight for the demon's head. The one-horned demon was terrified. The opponent's speed had increased by 3 points compared to before. In his haste, he could only grab 1 treasure in each hand and cross his arms to take another blow. Bang, bang, bang! The 2 separated almost immediately upon contact. The one-horned demon, unable to withstand the immense impact, was sent flying into the ruins of the now-divided Adventurers Guild, crashing through multiple walls in its wake. At near-peak strength, his 2 arms were not severed this time, but instead 2 deep, bone-revealing scars were exposed, with the white arm bones inside charred black. Interesting, that blow that severed my arm wasn't even your full strength. You certainly have the right to challenge me. The one-horned demon laughed heartily, enveloping the wound with black magic. The flesh writhed and instantly repaired the wound completely. Although using this move to heal injuries consumes life force, it is currently in the demon possession state, so it is not consuming its own life force at all, and therefore it uses it recklessly. At the same time, it opened its clenched right fist, revealing the purple fragment held in its palm, and slammed it hard against its chest. The fragment surrounded by purple light is one of the blood god fragments bestowed upon the blood god's substitute, blood god's torso, which is part of the blood god's body. While in demon possession, the unicorn demon absorbs the summoner's flesh and soul, gaining the ability to acquire fragments of the blood god and strengthen its body. As a large purple eye opened on its chest, its body began to grow to over 5 meters tall, and its imposing aura reached a new level. Chris's eyes narrowed, and he prepared to immediately interrupt the opponent's second transformation, since there was no invincibility period during the transformation process here. Just then, a series of orderly footsteps came from behind, indicating a large number of people. Could it be reinforcements from the academy or the church? No, with Adrian having taken away some of the city's fighting force, both sides must be locked in a fierce battle and struggling to survive. From within the mist, 21 figures wearing goat masks and red robes appeared, each holding a staff of the same design, forming 7 groups and assuming a battle formation. At the same time, with their formation as the center, the mist that had spread within a radius of 100 meters dissipated completely, and an astonishing magical energy began to gradually gather. The 21 blood priests, whom he could have easily dealt with, now exuded a dangerous aura. Chris knew this aura all too well. It was ritual magic. Even if I don't descend in my true form, I can achieve the same effect using this fragment. On the other side, the one-horned demon roared and swung its fist at Chris, wisps of purple magic continuously spreading from the purple fragment on its chest to its limbs, providing enhancement. Just as the two sides were about to clash with a loud clang, a golden light spread from the direction of the church throughout the entire city of Gal, dispelling all the fog in the city. Incidentally, this pure golden divine power repelled the attacking one-horned demon by more than 10 meters, sending it crashing into the ruins to the east. Chris's eyes lit up, and he instantly switched his gaze to the view of the familiar little black above him, surveying the entire situation. Because the fog has obscured the development of the situation within the city, it is now imperative to grasp the situation as quickly as possible. In the field of vision, a blue, bowl-shaped light curtain covered the Octavia Wizarding Academy, while a golden, cube-shaped light curtain enveloped the Church of Glory. Both key locations have revealed their trump cards. Without hesitation, Chris activated his skill Serpent Core immediately. A flash of blue light and Chris's consciousness instantly arrived in the extra-dimensional consciousness space constructed by the Serpent Star Core, sitting at the head of the Star Council. After testing himself when he activated the skill last time, he discovered that once he entered a state of deep meditation, a day in his consciousness space was equivalent to only 1 second in the external world. Chris's gaze swept over the nameplate on the table in front of him, which bore the code name Galaxy, and then he looked at the message board in the middle of the conference table. These are the rules I set when I first created this space. When I'm not present, both parties must communicate with each other through the message board and leave a record. Chris only needs to return to the space when he is free to check information or issue instructions through the chat history. With a thought, a virtual map slowly unfolded before him, then a pentagram was drawn with the city of Gal as the center, and the locations at the 5 corners were marked. Chris extended his right hand and tapped the top circle, which indicated the location of his first encounter with the cult, north of Gar City. Next, slide down to the circle in the southeast direction. The second encounter is in the Monster Forest, which is southeast of Gar City. The line connecting the 2 circles is tangent to Gar City. Based on the order in which the pentagram is drawn, the next target location is very likely to be a village or town in the west or southwest. As he pondered this, Chris glanced at the second nameplate on the right side of the conference table, Moonlight Silver Claw, the 5th member to recently join the Star Council. At the same time, it was also the first magical beast he had ever contracted. With the recent improvement of his basic magic power, the Shadow Wolf King, which was originally just one step away from being promoted to S rank, finally managed to squeeze into the council. Through the Wolf King's investigations, it was learned that small-scale sacrificial incidents had occurred in remote mountain villages to the east and southwest of Gal City. These incidents were originally treated as the work of mountain bandits. It seems the cult had planned this all along, secretly carrying out their actions disguised as bandits and wild beasts in the early stages, and now that the plan is nearing its end, they have come out in full force, demonstrating meticulous planning. Chris understood. Once the four directions, north, southeast, east, and southwest, were determined, only one position remained for the pentagram: the west. The trading city of Saphir, west of Gar, is heavily guarded, so the only remaining targets are the villages and towns between the two cities. Therefore, when Avelina asked Greta for support for garrison at the initial meeting, she did not interfere, simply because it would inevitably pass through those villages. Now, a line of text is neatly written above the message board: Golden Dawn has arrived at Windmill Village as agreed and encountered the enemy in the countryside at the Windmill Village. A bead of cold sweat dripped from Adrian's forehead as he stared at the dense swarm of merfolk before him. He never expected that even the sea creatures living in the Southern Ocean would participate in this operation and cooperate with the blood god cult. Groups of merfolk silently traversed the undercurrents of the river, crossed the Granvia Mountains, and lay in ambush in the rivers between the villages and towns west of Gar. A snakeman warrior wielding a trident emerged from the riverbank. His towering 3-meter frame intimidated Adrian and his group who had come to investigate, and he led the Seafoe army to force them into Windmill Village. It turns out that Windmill Village was already uninhabited. The cult had spread false information to lure people there for an ambush and sacrifice. Swallowing hard, Adrian swung his sword, brushing away the bloodstains from his fierce battle with the blood god cult members in the village, and stood in front of the group. Seeing that everyone was exhausted both physically and mentally from continuous fighting, Adrian couldn't help but reprimand them. You see, people have always lived in the bay ports south of the Granvia Mountains, completely separate from the human race. Why are you now cooperating with the cult to launch a surprise attack? The Snakeman warrior extended his scarlet forked tongue, licked the human blood from the corner of his mouth, and sneered, "Unrelated, that's just wishful thinking on your part. The humans in the port have been hunting our own kind for food, ravaging the sea tribes for a long time. This is simply retribution?" Adrian was taken aback, then retorted, "Then you should seek revenge on the people of the port city. Why did you travel all the way over mountains and valleys to besiege us here? You humans are all the same. The Order made an agreement with us to give us the port afterward, and they even delivered the offerings in advance. They're much more trustworthy than you." Not wanting to waste words, the Snakeman warrior gripped his trident and leaped up, thrusting it towards Adrian. Not to be outdone, Adrian swung his greatsword down in a fierce close-quarters battle. Bang! A tremendous force struck, and Adrian, already at his limit, staggered back several steps, a trickle of blood escaping from the corner of his mouth. Was he destined to perish in this remote village today? Adrian looked around at the towering windmills, sunlight filtering through the sails and falling on his face, his gaze resolute. "I am about to return to God's kingdom, and even if I die, I will take someone down with me." Just then, a gentle breeze blew by and the turning windmill dispersed the fishy smell brought up from the sea. Click click, a series of rhythmic metallic friction sounds came from the west, gradually increasing in volume. Following the Serpent General's bewildered gaze as he looked westward toward the main road, Adrian followed suit. The brilliant sunlight shone on the black armor, making it gleam. The knights at the front carried large, jet-black shields embroidered with sun patterns, while those in the middle were equipped with axes, spears, and maces. Cavalrymen moved behind them, creating a disciplined and orderly army. This was actually a large legion composed of organized knightly orders and church knightly orders. Adrian and his group, along with the Serpent Warrior, fell silent. They had thought that a single sea creature army coming to their remote mountain village would be the worst that could happen, but they never expected that an entire human legion would be heading straight for them. Seeing that things were not going well, the Snake Man warrior turned around and plunged into the river beside him, and the sea creatures behind him followed suit. They weren't stupid. To confront an entire organized legion of knights head-on in a non-coastal area would be tantamount to suicide. Not far away, Greta, atop her white horse, slowly drew her longsword and pointed it at the fleeing sea creatures. The snow-white blade reflected countless mermaid silhouettes in the sunlight. The next moment, the few mermaids who were a little slower were instantly decapitated, and a scorching sword aura swept into the group of mermaids, unstoppable. The attack was effective. The deafening battle cries surged towards the retreating sea tribe like a tidal wave, and blood truly soaked the rivers surrounding Windmill Village, turning them into rivers of blood. Instead of rushing after them, Greta rode up to Adrian and slowly asked, "How far is it from here to Gar City?" It turned out that the other party wasn't after this battlefield but rather wanted to go to Gar City and, incidentally, saved his life. Adrian casually pointed, "Not far, just 2 kilometers to the east." As soon as he finished speaking, he saw that the road leading due east was filled with thick fog. Why did this layer of fog appear so cleverly? It just so happened to avoid the time I left the city. In an instant, a sense of foreboding washed over Adrian. Garrison was in trouble. This is part of the Order's plan, luring the tiger away from the mountain. Gar City, in front of the ruins of the Adventurers Guild. 2 middle-aged men dressed in black-patterned red robes appeared in the north. They were the 2 blood-stained envoys from the 3rd batch of people who had entered the city earlier, and they had come in response to the summons. In the west, the figure of an old wizard with flame patterns on his robe appeared. It was none other than Stuart, an elemental wizard who taught ritual magic. In the south, 21 blood priests formed a ritual magic array, poised to unleash their power. In the east, a 5-meter-tall one-horned demon slowly rose from the ruins, unfurling fleshy wings the same size as Chris's firewing, clearly unharmed. Chris stood in the center, a pair of fiery wings behind him swaying rhythmically, surveying all directions with dominance. Sensing that the white-robed elder's magical fluctuations had completely disappeared, the 2 blood priests from the north dared not be careless and immediately joined forces to unleash their strongest moves, demon possession plus advanced blood magic. "How dare you kill our Order's sacrifice master? We will skin you alive, tear you apart, and offer you as a sacrifice." With a roar, black and red magic surged around their bodies. 2 magic circles overlapped and intertwined in front of them, and 2 blood snakes coiled together, opening their pitch-black mouths to bite at Chris. The magic seemed familiar, similar to, or even surpassing, the dark erosion fang used by Ammon, the first blood priest who was defeated by Chris using a scroll. But things are different now, especially for Chris. Noisy. Without turning his head, Chris's gaze remained fixed on the one-horned demon, his hands emerging from his robes and gesturing to the side. A red meteor and an orange arrow of light simultaneously soared into the air and collided head-on with the blood serpent's gaping maw, instantly piercing it through. Their momentum remained undiminished as they continued their charge towards the 2 blood sacrificers behind them. As the blood serpent's form crumbled piece by piece, the 2 people casting the spell behind it were inevitably pierced through completely. Boom, boom, boom. The sound was deafening, and 2 huge craters were left in the ground, with blood and flesh flying everywhere in the air. These 2 terrifyingly powerful attack spells were the Yongyuan Triple Strike and Triple Overlapping Waves, which had just finished cooling down. Ha ha ha, what an idiot. You've used your trump cards on 2 nobodies, so how are you going to deal with my attacks now? The one-horned demon laughed loudly, flapped its fleshy wings with all its might, seized the opportunity to fly forward, and launched a punch straight at the demon. Boom. How can a body of flesh and blood compare to layers upon layers of wings of flame? Another loud bang, and the one-horned demon was jerked back, feeling as if it had punched an incredibly hard blade, its hand dripping with black blood. He looked at the back of his hand, where a deep, cross-shaped scar revealed the bone inside charred black by the intense flames, the consequence of striking the opponent's wing earlier. When did I ever say that these were my only 2 trump cards? Chris said calmly, "In order to finish this battle quickly, I've unlocked all the magic restrictions on the offensive and defensive aspects of Flame Feather Robe, directly maximizing its output." The next moment, the fire wings, which were originally only 3 meters long, suddenly grew to 5 meters. Then, each feather on its wings increased in size by 3/10, flames radiated everywhere, and the fiery wings expanded to 7 meters. A terrifying pressure swept across the entire space, causing everyone present to change color. The one-horned demon's entire black face turned ashen. His attack had not only failed to break through the opponent's defenses but had also resulted in a backlash that injured his hand. Now, facing the even more powerful fire wings, how could he possibly withstand it? "We absolutely cannot engage in close combat anymore. We must maintain distance and use firepower to wear them down." Having made up his mind, he flapped his wings and flew backward at top speed. At the same time, black magic circles appeared on his palms, condensing into countless black lightning bolts that attacked Chris in the air. At the same time, the 21 blood priests from the south completed their ritual magic formation, and under Stuart's guidance, a torrent of crimson magic swept towards Chris. Suppressive firepower, a slight smile crept onto Chris's face. "This is precisely my area of expertise. If the enemy is determined to scatter and flee, it's not certain that I can annihilate many of them. I didn't expect the other party to run into my line of fire so quickly." Chris raised his right hand high and 2 enormous fiery wings slowly unfolded to their limit. Each feather was enchanted with a fireball spell, and in an instant the sky was ablaze with red light. "This is a fireball spell, and it even incorporates ritual magic." Upon seeing that this seemingly powerful attack was actually composed of fireballs, a technique that everyone looked down upon, Stuart's eyes widened and he cried out in disbelief. The one-horned demon was equally surprised. Being within the attack range of the 2 fiery wings, he understood best the absolute power contained in this attack. However, since his attack had already been launched, he could only grit his teeth and continue. Questions and answers are useless. The strongest attack in Flame Feather Robe form, Meteor Shower, is activated. Countless fireballs rain down, colliding with the countless lightning bolts unleashed by the one-horned demon. At the same time, he touched the amulet close to his chest with his left hand, fully activating the magic power contained within it. After 1,000 days of training, the legendary amulet Isara's Guardian was fully activated with a flash of blue light. Countless starlight fragments gathered on Chris's left hand, their power seemingly endless. The amulets that regularly absorb magic power maintain their peak magical reserves, transforming into countless specks of starlight, making Chris feel as if he were surrounded by a sky full of stars. With a flick of Chris's left hand, the surging starlight gathered into a galaxy, crashing head-on into a torrent of crimson magic. Starlight Torrent directly confronts the combined attack of ritual magic and blood magic. With the enhancement of ritual magic, the power of blood magic was greatly increased. The 7 magic circles formed by the 7 groups were combined into a large magic circle under Stuart's command, which was incredibly powerful. Unfortunately, what they faced was the Starlight Torrent, which absorbed Chris's daily magical power. With its seemingly boundless magical support, a sky full of stars rushed towards them from above. If the combined attack of the cult was like a river, then Chris's attack was like a vast ocean, boundless and limitless. The sea instantly submerged the river, sweeping away the 21 crimson blood priests along with their commander, Stuart. On the other side, an endless rain of fire collided with dense, localized lightning, creating a continuous series of explosions. The 2 sides were like a downpour versus a drizzle. The lightning was quickly exhausted by the fireballs, and then countless fireballs bombarded the one-horned demon who was defending with all its might. Boom, 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 boom. When the smoke cleared, countless pits and cracks appeared on the ground, and only Chris remained suspended in the air. There were no more adversaries standing on the ground. Complete suppression, cough, cough, cough. Crawling out from beneath the corpses of 21 red-robed blood priests, Stuart lay on his back, vomiting blood continuously. Just as the two magical forces collided, even though he hid at the back of the crowd and used all his protective gear, he still couldn't avoid being seriously injured. If this trend continues, my serious injuries will soon become fatal. Stuart glanced at his body, riddled with holes by the Starlight Torrent attack, and pulled a purple fragment from his pocket. The Blood God fragment, Blood God Brain, is a treasure given to him by the Order in an attempt to win him over. I've been keeping it safe for safety reasons and haven't dared to use it easily, but if I don't use it now, I'm afraid I'll never have the chance to use it again. After a moment's hesitation, Stuart resolutely pressed the shard into his forehead. Buzz. A purple light enveloped Stuart's body, rapidly turning his entire body black, and his injuries quickly healed. While the fragments of the Blood God's brain cannot enhance one's body like the fragments of the Blood God's torso, they can achieve complete demonic possession. Although the usage period is the same as that of a normal demon summon, it does not require self-sacrifice during possession. Instead, external objects can be used as offerings. The downside is that it cannot strengthen the body to increase survivability in daily life, so not many people choose it. At that moment, Stuart offered the 21 fresh corpses in front of him as a sacrifice to some being in the demon plane without hesitation, and purple flames immediately ignited on the corpses' bodies. The purple flames were consumed in an instant, leaving only 21 lifeless skeletons. The next moment, a massive aura descended. The aura unique to high-level demons gathered on Stuart's body, growing and expanding until it finally transformed into a gigantic monster 6 meters tall with no horns or wings. Chris, suspended in midair, glanced around, sensing the unusual aura. He spread his wings, ready to strike first. Just then, a green light suddenly flashed in front of Chris. It was a dagger silently slashing towards his neck. The angle, timing, and force of this sneak attack were all superb, perfectly timing the attack during Chris's spellcasting animation and the brief moment his attention was diverted from his vision. One-hit kill. A premeditated and long-lurking assassin should indeed act this way when facing a wizard who has lowered his guard after a normal battle. Clang! A metallic clang rang out. The dagger didn't seem to touch skin, but rather struck a hard rock, sending countless sparks flying. The life protection function of the legendary amulet Isara's Guardian activates naturally. 10 seconds is the duration of the special magical shield that will be activated this time. Chris frowned slightly, glancing at the man in black who, having missed his attack, immediately disappeared into the shadows, preparing to flee. The assassin before me, dressed in black, wielded the signature dagger of the Shadow Harvest organization. Unlike others, the markings on the dagger had been transformed from 4 separate patterns into a single, complete design, clearly indicating the high rank the person held within the organization. A swift and decisive victory. With a swift movement, a net of fire formed by 2 fiery wings instantly attacked the black-clad man who had not yet fully disappeared into the shadows. A flicker of panic crossed the man in black's eyes. Not daring to take the blow head-on, he quickly pulled out 3 scrolls and tossed them into the air. Bang, bang, bang! 3 explosions rang out simultaneously, and the flying scroll fragments revealed that 3 substitute scrolls had been completely consumed. This assassin is far more dangerous than the group that faced him head-on before. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the ability to detect invisible units, making it difficult to pinpoint his location. However, it's not necessarily necessary to know the true location. The opponent will likely remain nearby in preparation for another attack, so as long as we bombard the area, we're bound to hit them a few times. With that thought in mind, Chris clasped his hands together and the fire wings expanded to their maximum extent. At the same time, the field of vision shifted to the familiar Little Black's line of sight. After confirming that there were no other people around, indiscriminate bombardment of the battle area began. Is this guy crazy? The man in black struggled desperately in the rain of fire, flames beginning to engulf his body. Direct combat was never his forte, so he had to use up another substitute scroll to escape the range of the enemy's fire. Even as an S-class assassin, he only had 5 life-saving scrolls accumulated over the years, yet he used up 4 of them in just 1 minute. A deep sense of powerlessness washed over me. I realized that the enemy I was facing was simply beyond my capabilities. After bombarding the area, Chris hovered in the air, trying to locate the aura of the newly appeared high-level demon, but he couldn't find it. The view shifted, and all that could be seen was a purple figure rushing westward at breakneck speed. It was the demonic aura that had just appeared. At this moment, Stuart not only completed 100% of the demon possession, but also recovered from his serious injuries with the help of demonic power. Fortunately, the other party was intellectually disabled and extremely sleepy, allowing him to have complete control over the body and move freely. Therefore, he decisively chose to escape. His research was not yet completed. How could he easily collapse in such a place? Are you kidding me? Just now, a high-ranking unicorn demon and 21 blood priests who formed ritual magic along with 2 bloodline wielders were completely suppressed by the opponent in one blow. Now, I'm just one person, a high-ranking demon. How could I possibly be a match for him? Whether it was due to the use of the blood god brain fragment or not, Stuart felt that his brain was unusually active and his thoughts were gradually accelerating, as if he could see through everything. Stuart's intuition told him he had to get away from the scene immediately. From the moment Chris saw Stuart appear, he understood who the biggest mole in the city was, and why the enemy dared to invade Gar City with only one elemental-level wizard as their combat power. At this moment, at the Octavia Wizarding Academy that the other party was heading to, Chris could feel a familiar magical power constantly rising, no less powerful than Stuart's after demon possession. Just to be on the safe side, double-check the scene for any survivors to avoid any escapees. Instead of acting rashly and immediately chasing after him, Chris chose to finish him off first. This action, however, led him to discover a clue. Although the aura of the one-horned demon was very faint, it had not completely disappeared. Chris quickly shifted his gaze to observe and saw a faint red light appearing amidst the ruins. The field of vision has broadened once again. The scarlet ring opened its inky pupils, continuously devouring the flesh and blood remnants of the one-horned demon. Chris's pupils contracted slightly and he stopped approaching, cautiously scanning the area from high above. Although the specific purpose of this ring is unknown, it is now feeding on the flesh and blood of high-ranking demons. What exactly happened? How did the one-eyed demon survive my full-force attack? And how was that ring activated? One question after another popped up and Chris rubbed his temples with both hands. Fortunately, my newly learned skill, Echoes of Memory, allowed me to replicate details I had missed earlier and clarify the whole story. With a flash of blue light, Chris's memories began to rewind, recalling fragments of the previous battle. In my memory, right after Chris unleashed 2 devastating attacks, Starlight Torrent and Meteor Shower, the one-horned demon immediately pulled out an ancient red ring and put it on his thumb. Just as the skill was about to completely engulf it, it sacrificed itself entirely to the ring. Its entire body was covered in red light and turned into a pile of flesh, continuously flowing into the ring. It survived thanks to the ring's temporary protection, but its body soon became the ring's food. As the memory ended, Chris stared at the ancient magic ring, secretly on guard. Is this a magical artifact of the Holy Relic level? Its power was indeed considerable, but the fact that the entire cult had mobilized to set up a large-scale sacrificial array was certainly not just to take the ring out of the city. More likely, they want to use this ring to free something that shouldn't exist in this plane. Based on the information he knew from the oracle fragments, the colossal demon the size of a mountain was probably the main focus of the Order's operation, only to be forcibly interrupted by him. Just then, something unexpected happened. The ring, having devoured the remnants of the Cyclops' body, seemed unsatisfied and instead unleashed a black magic circle that covered the entire area where the battle had just taken place. Phew! A tremendous suction force emanated from the center of the magic circle. It was not a physical suction force, but rather a suction force of magic power and even a suction force of the soul. Soon, the 21 skeletons left on the battlefield, the corpses of the 2 blood sacrificers and the dozens of black-clad men who had died in battle were all absorbed into the black magic circle and turned into nourishment. At the same time, beams of red light shot into the sky one after another. Due east, southwest, due north, southeast, due west. 5 giant red beams of light shot straight into the sky, forming a massive magic circle high above, spanning thousands of meters. On the giant magic circle, red chains were wrapped around it, and terrifying magical fluctuations overflowed from the red lock in the center of the circle, seemingly indicating that something that should not exist was sealed inside. Hundreds of meters vertically from the center of the giant magic circle, a dark pupil inside a red ring opened to its maximum, occupying the entire space within the ring. Streams of black magic flowed within the newly formed black magic circle, constructing a complex and intricate array within an array, poised to unleash its power. It turns out that the magic absorption just now was only to fully activate this magic surge. Chris raised an eyebrow and instantly appeared above the black magic circle, his fiery wings flapping, ready to completely interrupt the spellcasting before the circle could fully charge. However, a figure suddenly appeared behind him, brandishing a dagger and a scroll as he attacked. The sharp dagger gleamed green and it slid cunningly toward Chris's neck, as swift and deadly as a venomous dragon. Unfortunately, Chris never let his guard down around this assassin. The fire wings, constantly burning a large amount of magic, are faster than daggers. The moment the figure appears in the air, the right fire wing forms a shield, while the left fire wing strikes before the opponent can even make a move. Boom! The dagger, along with the scroll, pierced the fire wings without causing the slightest ripple. The other fire wing then slashed directly at the unsuspecting opponent. The man in black was unsurprisingly cleaved in two and plummeted from the sky, about to crash into the black magic circle. What happened? A sense of unease crept into Chris's heart. The fact that this long-lurking assassin would reveal himself when I hadn't given myself away must be a trap. Generally speaking, the higher a person's position, the more they value their life and the more ways they can protect themselves. This is true of the white-robed old man, the one-eyed demon, the black-clad assassin from earlier, and Stuart, who was fleeing in panic. They would never do something so foolish as to walk right into a trap unless they could gain a greater advantage. Just then, he saw the scroll pierced on his right wing of fire, gradually burning. Chris's pupils suddenly widened. That was a high-level substitute scroll. As the scroll was activated, Chris's figure gradually blurred, and the next moment he appeared 500 meters away. The assassin in black's desperate attack wasn't actually aimed at him. Instead, it's a delaying tactic, allowing the black magic circle to fully activate this magic charging. To this end, the opponent not only sacrificed himself to attach the scroll to the fire wings, but also accurately calculated the position where his body would fall when he died, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Chris flapped his fiery wings with all his might, instantly approaching the edge of the black magic circle, but he was still a step too late. As the black-clad man's corpse fell into the black magic circle, which was just 1 step away from being fully charged, was instantly activated. A surge of black magic power rushed straight towards the giant red lock in the sky. Boom! A deafening explosion rang out in the air, and the resulting massive magical energy surge even covered an area of hundreds of miles. The massive red lock developed fine cracks under the impact and then completely disintegrated. At the same time, a large, swaying metal gate gradually appeared within the giant red magic circle, constantly pulling on the red chains on the surface of the magic circle, making a creaking sound. Boundless black magic surged from the crack in the door, staining the entire sky and blocking out even the sunlight. As the shadow continued to spread, everyone could sense that a terrifying and evil entity was about to be unleashed. Okay, is that how you play it? Chris, instead of being angry, laughed as he reached the edge of the magic circle and pulled out the green glowing dagger stuck in the right fire wing. Sensing the immense magical energy emanating from within the door, Chris was confident he could suppress his opponent but perhaps not completely annihilate them. Then let's elevate it to the level where we can completely annihilate them. A flash of blue light followed by a familiar mechanical voice. A consumable magical item has been detected. Absorb it, yes. Chris glanced at the system interface, Tide modifier equipment name, Shadow Weaver's Dagger 4-4 Shadow Ruler Equipment Type Weapon Dagger Set Equipment Level High Equipment Effect. Concealment seamlessly blends into the surrounding environment, making it difficult to detect even during combat. Penetrating Thrust ignores the target's physical defense, dealing deep penetrating damage. Phantom Dance summons phantom clones to confuse attackers or aid in defense. Shadow Devourer, the dagger can absorb the target's shadow, temporarily enhancing the wielder's attack power and speed. Equipment Restriction, the wearer must have learned advanced shadow magic as a prerequisite for using the dagger, otherwise the full power of the dagger may not be unleashed. Fortunately, her flame feather robe not only provided physical defense, but the fire wall it created could also block a certain amount of magical damage, which allowed her to easily withstand the opponent's attacks. Chris didn't know how to use shadow magic or daggers, so he decisively chose to sacrifice himself. In-depth development, remaining attempts, 0 right arrow 5 rounds of in-depth development. Chris said he had never fought such a lucrative battle before. Previously, sacrificing basic and intermediate magic items only granted 1 or 2 skill development attempts, but unexpectedly advanced magic items have increased that to 5. What if he sacrificed this legendary amulet as well? Wouldn't that be? Chris quickly shook his head, dismissing the thought. Legendary magical items are rare and hard to come by, and this amulet can be quite helpful in times of crisis. It's not too late to sacrifice it when there's a real need to use it. Chris looked up at the blood-red gate behind the enormous red magic circle high in the sky, where the terrifying being was about to break free. The fact that the sealing gate can be set in the air, considering the flying ability previously demonstrated by the one-horned demon, suggests that a fierce battle is inevitable. Add to that the already ravaged ruins on the ground, and if I were to engage in direct combat with the sealed entity within the city of Gal, the aftershocks would likely destroy the entire city. The battlefield must be kept in the sky, but my current flame feather robe can only fly at low to medium altitudes and cannot reach the height of the ceiling array. Then let's upgrade our flight capabilities first, because aerial combat inevitably generates wind. Chris decisively selected the flame feather robe proficient level skill he had already learned and added the wind attribute skill he hadn't learned yet to the development options. In-depth development, data fusion requirement for wind attribute magic detected. Deep development attempts, 1, please confirm. In-depth development, remaining attempts, 5 right arrow 4 relevant data has been completed. Simulation continues. Simulation complete. Spell deconstruction. Analyzing the constituent circuits of flame feather robe and wind magic. Skill analysis. The flame robe provides flight ability and fire attack defense, while wind magic enhances speed and maneuverability. Motive identification. Determine the purpose of the magical fusion. Create a new full-body form skill that combines flight, speed, control, and fire attack and defense. Power test. Analyzes and determines the magical power required for activation, already skipped by default effectiveness assessment. Assessing the potential power, speed boost, maneuverability, and duration of the new skill to ensure excellent combat effectiveness both in the air and on the ground. Calculations complete. Simulated fusion. Simulates the activation process of a new skill in a virtual environment to ensure the correctness of the magic circuits and the realization of the skill's effects. Tests the performance of the new skill in different combat scenarios, including rapid movement, dodging, hovering in the air, and attack efficiency, as well as its adaptability in complex environments. Simulation complete. In-depth development, remaining attempts, 4 right arrow 0 current progress 100% deduction results. Skill name, Blazing Wind and Fiery Feathers. Skill level, proficient. Skill description, combining the swiftness of wind with the fiery power of the flame robe, a completely new skill is created. Upon activating the flame robe, the caster summons a whirlwind to surround themselves, forming a protective layer of scorching wind. While moving at high speed or flying, the scorching wind provides the caster with additional propulsion, while simultaneously dealing dual fire and wind-based slashing damage to approaching enemies. Skill effect. Enhanced propulsion. When activated, the caster gains extremely high movement speed and aerial maneuverability, enabling high-altitude combat. Double damage. Attacks and defenses leave behind flames and wind blades, dealing area of effect continuous damage to enemies. Protective layer. The protective layer formed by the fun wind can withstand a certain amount of damage and retaliate against enemies when attacked. Gale swiftness. When high speed is needed, it transforms from a gale-like flight into a pure wind attribute speed form, greatly increasing movement speed for a short period of time. Flame barrier. When high defense is needed, the caster can switch to flame barrier form to enhance the defensive power and duration of the flame barrier. Fun burst can instantly release the accumulated fire and storm energy within the body, forming a powerful fun explosion that instantly raises the temperature of the surrounding area, causing widespread fire damage and bringing a strong wind pressure impact. Skill characteristics. Attack power can deal continuous fire and wind damage to enemies while moving. Defense. The fun protection layer provides additional protection, reducing damage taken. Mobility increases the caster's movement speed and agility, making them difficult to detect or locate. Skill cost. Mana consumption, extremely high depending on the skill's duration and intensity of use. This has been ignored. Cooldown time, relatively long. Due to the combination of the powers of two elements, it takes time for the body's magical energy balance to be restored. This has been ignored. Looking at the skill description of the new skill, Burning Wind and Blazing Feathers, Chris couldn't help but nod repeatedly. Even excluding the wind attribute magic that consumed one deep development attempt, it still took 4 deep development attempts to obtain this new skill. The surprise it brings far exceeds the surprise of consuming 2 deep development attempts before. If the previous skills were like accumulating and sprouting, then the new skills are the moment of true blossoming and bearing fruit. Feeling the surging magical energy flowing through his body, Chris activated his new skill without hesitation, Burning Wind Feathers. A gigantic hurricane, stretching straight to the sky, rose out of nowhere, continuously condensing and compressing around Chris, eventually unleashing a tremendous surge of magical power that directly dispersed the dark clouds within 100 miles. In Gar City, at the Octavian Wizarding Academy in front of the library tower. With the key to the protective magic array in his possession, Stuart entered the academy safely. Taking advantage of the moment when the 2 terrifying auras in the sky were intertwined, he planned to slaughter all the wizards in the academy and take them away. The purple demon controlled by Stuart grinned from ear to ear at the thought of reaping so much high-level material. As for the elemental-level wizard inside the library tower, Tower Master Flavia, how could it possibly be a match for the high-level demon he was currently controlling? High-level demons, with their extremely high magic resistance, are the natural nemesis of wizards. Moreover, there are currently no close combat experts in the Wizarding Academy who can rival him, so all that's left is to enjoy the thrill of this massacre. First, kill ordinary wizards to increase your strength, then kill this final, formidable opponent, slowly torturing her mental fortitude until she takes the initiative and walks right into your trap. Although he outwardly expressed great confidence in his abilities, Stuart still subconsciously harbored some apprehension towards beings of the Tower Master level. Moreover, the Tower Master can gain a significant boost in combat power by passing near the towers he built, so it is not advisable to fight him head-on. Thinking this, Stuart lightly stepped over the library tower and was about to rush towards the main tower where the ordinary wizard students stayed. Just then, a tremendous force like an earthquake came from beneath his feet, causing even Stuart, who possessed extraordinary physical abilities, to stagger and take 2 steps back, halting his advance. What's going on? Could the aftershocks of the battle between those 2 beings in the sky really be so powerful that they can affect the Wizarding Academy, which is hundreds of meters away and protected by barriers? Aren't they afraid of harming innocent people? Stuart glared at the sky with resentment, only to find no signs of battle and the massive magic circle in the sky not yet fully activated. The ground tremors were coming from nearby. What could it be? The next moment, the library tower beside me rose from the ground, with 4 huge stone pillars separating from the walls to serve as arms and legs, and a pair of transparent crystal eyes inside the spire shimmering with red light. Through combination and transformation, the entire tower transformed into a colossal magical statue exuding a terrifying aura. The 6-meter-tall purple demon stared blankly at the dozens-meter-tall magical colossus before it. This nearly lost art of magical craftsmanship has somehow appeared in the magic academy of this nameless city. Looking at the colossal construct before him, a product of magical craftsmanship, Stuart's face turned ashen. No wonder Flavia, who is also an elemental wizard, did not start teaching classes and has been engrossed in her research. The study of magical craftsmanship not only requires its inheritors to possess extraordinary magical talent, but also involves extremely rigorous selection processes. Only those who have created a fully completed construct are qualified to open a class and take on an apprentice. For this reason, constructs created through magical craftsmanship are incredibly powerful and often become large-scale weapons of mass destruction in various wars. Flavia, who possesses the qualifications of a tower master, naturally creates constructs with even greater and more terrifying power. The magic colossus deals real physical damage. Even if a high-level demon has a tough body, it is still far less strong than the body of a construct reinforced by magic. At this point, we can only hope that the magical colossus's limited mobility will allow it to escape its pursuit. Without the slightest hesitation, Stuart fully activated the purple body of the high-level demon and charged into the crowd at full speed. The price paid for the colossus's unparalleled power was a lack of control over its subtleties. If you can escape into the crowd before being caught, you can make your opponent helpless and unable to do anything about it. Thinking of this, Stuart even crouched down on all fours, manipulating the demon's body to transform into a reckless mad dog about to crash into the tower. You seem to have forgotten that the area within 100 meters of where the tower stands belongs to me. Flavia, standing atop the tower atop the colossus's head, stretched out her right hand and slowly raised it upwards. A massive stone wall rose directly from the ground, completely blocking Stuart's path. Tisk, then let's try another route. Upon seeing that his path was blocked, Stuart immediately turned around and sped off to the right after a sharp turn. As long as one can reach the vicinity of the Academy's protective magic circle, one can escape using the teleportation function built into the key and fly far away. In the next instant, Flavia suddenly raised her hands, and not only in front of her but also behind her and to the left and right, a huge stone wall rose up, fitting together perfectly. 4 enormous stone walls, hundreds of meters high, resembled a cage, trapping Stuart and the colossus within. However, one entered willingly while the other was passively trapped. Stuart had no doubt that if he had wings and the ability to fly, his opponent would not hesitate to add another cover on top to prevent him from getting out. The outcome of the battle between the two may have been decided the moment Stuart stepped into the territory of the tower. Since there's no escape, let's fight to the death and see who emerges victorious. A fierce glint flashed in Stuart's eyes as he glared menacingly at the culprit who had put him in this predicament. Without Flavia, my plan would have proceeded smoothly and the research could not have been interrupted. This time I must bring back fresh, high-quality human samples. If I were to fall here, the research on human blood used to feed demons would likely never be reproduced. How could these vermin possibly understand my good intentions? Stuart tried to speak, but because the purple demon's vocal organs were not fully developed, he could only make a mournful woo-woo sound. Worse still, with his series of vigorous movements, the dormant purple demon's consciousness seemed to be gradually awakening. If one simply waits for the demon to regain consciousness, even though possessing fragments of the blood god's brain would prevent one from being sacrificed, it would be presumptuous to try and take control of the body. Demons unaware of the power of the Colossus would only die needlessly, taking their lives with them, something Stuart could not accept. He wanted to seize the moment while he still had control over this demonic body brimming with explosive power and launch a final counterattack. The purple demon's figure flashed, and with a powerful stomp of the ground, it instantly approached the top of the magical Colossus, aiming directly at the head that controlled the Colossus. Flavia, then the shadows of 2 enormous stone palms enveloped it and gently closed. There was no sound, only a trickle of scarlet blood dripping down the edge of the stone palm. It's like swatting a mosquito. Gar City Octavia Wizarding Academy inside the teaching tower. The junior wizarding apprentices, the senior novice wizards, and the teachers all noticed the huge commotion happening outside. Because of the protective array set up at the entrance of the academy, the aftershocks of the great battle in the city did not affect the daily life of the academy within the array. Most students continued to attend classes normally until Flavia, manipulating the magical colossus that was the embodiment of the library tower, suddenly attacked. The tremors caused by the towering stone wall sinking into the earth and the magical fluctuations of the elemental wizard all indicated that the sudden event was extraordinary and attracted attention. Curious, everyone crowded to the window and witnessed the scene where the Colossus of Magic slapped the purple demon in its palm. Could this magical fluctuation, unique to elemental-level wizards, be the work of Master Stewart, who oversees our academy? A wizard apprentice shouted excitedly, his expression thrilled. This was a vivid and engaging lesson for most of the students who lacked practical experience. No, the intensity of this magical fluctuation is clearly above that of an ordinary elemental-level wizard. I suspect it might be the Tower Master, who has made a move. Straightening his purple apprentice wizard robes, a student dressed as a nobleman stared intently at the battlefield outside and slowly uttered his deductions, followed by two similarly dressed underlings. Are you talking about the legendary Tower Master who resides on the third floor of the library tower? I've never seen that being appear before me since I enrolled, let alone made a move. Ultimately, beings of that level are elusive and rarely seen. How can you be sure it was the Tower Master who made the move? Another graduating apprentice wizard asked in bewilderment. It was indeed the work of the Tower Master. I was fortunate enough to witness her astonishing skills once during the early stages of the Tower of Library's construction. Only she possesses such a profound mastery of this nearly lost magical technique, magical craftsmanship. However, she has disappeared in recent years, and I thought she had gone to the capital, Seraphis, for further studies. An aged voice rang out. It belonged to a highly respected professor who had been working at the grassroots level for decades since the beginning of his teaching career. He glanced around at the students and said calmly, "Since the Tower Master has intervened, there shouldn't be any problems. You should all go back and focus on your studies. If it's a problem that even the Tower Master can't solve, our concern won't be of much use." Upon hearing the old professor speak, the crowd who were witnessing the Tower Master's methods up close for the first time nodded in agreement and returned to their original seats. But at this moment, Flavia, the Tower Master of the library tower, did indeed encounter an unsolvable problem, a problem that made her furrow her brows and look anxiously at the sky. Because the magic colossus cannot fly. The rest is up to you, Chris. Flavia's red eyes revealed a hint of loss. She wished she could witness this upcoming battle up close. The two terrifying forces in the sky were a clash that would be a once-in-a-lifetime event, perhaps even a once-in-a-century occurrence. However, Flavia would not hesitate to trust Chris, who had passed the test she set, the stairway to trial. Only seasoned wizards qualified to set trials understand that those who can pass the elemental wizard trials without following the usual procedures are monsters. Although he himself passed the trial in his own unique way back then, he was far from reaching the level of Chris, who completely subverted or even transformed the content of the trial. She looked up at the raging winds and flames in the sky, which seemed capable of shaking the heavens and earth, her eyes shining. Meanwhile, in the sky, Chris, having activated his new skill Burning Wind and Blazing Feathers, was gradually approaching the central gate of the giant magic circle. 7 of the 8 dark red chains on the gate had broken free, and the remaining chains swayed precariously like a candle in the wind. Just as the last dark red chain was about to break, Chris swiftly waved his wings, which were enveloped in burning wind, to help the opponent break free in time and launch a surprise attack. He then quickly adjusted his posture, circulating his magic to prepare for the situation, while dispelling the surface layer of flaming wind to reveal a harmless appearance. This move stunned not only Flavia, who was watching from the ground, but also the beings on the other side of the door. Does he not want to wait for the enemy to tire themselves out and instead allow them to descend to Earth in their full strength for a fair duel? But wouldn't that? A flicker of surprise and doubt flashed in Flavia's red eyes as she anxiously observed the battle. Excellent! I knew the Blood God cult would send a powerful figure to execute this plan. I didn't expect it to go so smoothly. The tightly closed red gate was suddenly ripped open, and a vast amount of black magic flowed out from it, once again staining the sky and forming a black canopy that blocked out the few rays of sunlight that were visible at dusk. Tonight is the perfect time, the night of the full moon. With my fully awakened power and my complete form as I descend in my true form, who can stop me from ruling this world? A mountain-like demon emerged from it, its enormous head sprouting 2 horns and crimson eyes, the very same creature Chris had seen in the last fragment of the Oracle memory. The demon's appearance was remarkably similar to the blood god mask Chris was wearing, almost identical, as if they were made from the same mold. A cult follower of the blood sacrifice level, you're not qualified to speak with me. Where are your substitute or blood sacrifice leaders? After scrutinizing Chris from head to toe, the 2-horned demon's enormous eyes swept across the battlefield of Gar City, where it was startled to find the corpses of cult members lying haphazardly on the ground. Chris understood. The other party was not a fool. According to what they had just said, it would only truly descend when the 3 elements of timing, power, and physical form were all gathered. Conversely, if we interpret this as the sun about to set and the moon not yet rising, and the opponent is unable to unleash their full power because their shackles were removed prematurely, therefore all their current rhetoric is merely a delaying tactic, we can simply ignore it. Them. Just as the 2-horned demon was about to ask a question, a fist the size of a sandbag rapidly approached in his field of vision, growing larger and larger. A giant hand, its surface simultaneously wrapped in cyan wind magic and red fire magic, coalesced into a distinct fist. With a single punch, he shoved the half-exposed body of the 2-horned demon back into the doorway. Boom. An incredibly powerful impact force shoved the 2-horned demon back into the door, and Chris took the opportunity to retrieve the ancient red ring that resembled a key embedded in the sealed door. A consumable magical item has been detected. Absorb it, Tide modifier. Equipment name, Blood God's Eye. Half-damaged. Equipment type, magic item. Sealing ring. Equipment level, artifact grade continuously decreasing. Equipment origin, this ring was originally a holy relic that was taken in and blessed by the Church of Glory. After being sealed for many years, it has acquired some demonic power. Equipment effect, demon-slaying seal. Having been blessed and sealed by multiple archbishops, it possesses powerful sealing and suppressing abilities, capable of sealing even high-ranking demons. Holy light induction. Infusing holy attribute magic can activate the power within the ring, providing a powerful amplification effect when used as a spellcasting tool. Demonic curse, a curse inflicted by a demon imprisoned within for years. When dark attribute magic is infused into the ring, it can temporarily suppress the original holy attribute sealing ability. Blood God rune. Before being taken in by the church and made into a holy relic-level magical artifact, its original material was the Blood God's Eye, one of the Blood God fragments, thus possessing the ability to accept blood sacrifices. Chaotic power. The ring is in a partially damaged state with its various magical forces intertwined, which may lead to instability in the seal and the ring's performance, thus reducing its value. Equipment restrictions. Special Condition 1. Blood God's Mark. By setting up a large pentagram sacrifice array after completing a large number of sacrifices, the dark attribute magic power in the ring becomes dominant. Special Condition 2. Blessing of Light. When a clergyman of archbishop rank or above infuses a certain amount of light attribute magic, the user is restored to their natural state. Chris stroked his chin. It seemed that magical items of the Saint Relic level were indeed not easy to use. It was unexpected that the container used to seal the demon was one of the Blood God fragments. Perhaps this is also a kind of enemy and friend sharing the same origin. Furthermore, based on the current situation, this sealed ring not only has stringent usage conditions, but its performance also continues to decline after the seal is broken. With time running out, Chris didn't hesitate to choose agree to absorb. He was neither an archbishop nor a priest, nor did he possess the skill of blood sacrifice, nor did he have any light or dark attribute magic. Rather than letting the ring fall into the hands of the enemy, it's better to make it another source of power for oneself. In-depth development, remaining attempts, 0 right arrow 10, skill echo of memory activates naturally and Chris recalls the memory of checking the ring's information in the system interface. As expected, it's in a semi-damaged state. Although the number of times it was developed exceeded the gains from any previous attempt, it still falls short of expectations. Logically, a relic should have been developed more than 20 times. However, with a formidable enemy at hand, it is necessary to increase strength as much as possible. If we can suppress them with brute force, there is no need to use any techniques. Having many skills is never a bad thing, so let's improve in all aspects. A flash of blue light appeared and Chris looked expectantly at the new skill on the system interface. In-depth development, remaining attempts, 10 right arrow 5 right arrow 0. The relevant data for the 5 attributes has been completed. The deduction continues. Skill analysis. Comprehensively increases the caster's maximum mana, providing a foundation for using higher-level spells, optimizes mana regeneration efficiency, reduces casting intervals, increases the speed and efficiency of mana flow within the body, reduces mana loss, and improves casting stability. Motivation identification. Determining the purpose of magical fusion, development and utilization of new magical circuits power test. Analyzes and determines the magical power required for activation, already skipped by default. Wind breathing, type, auxiliary control description, constructs wind attribute magic circuits increasing the caster's movement speed and agility. Additional wind magic energy can be used to enhance wind spells or create wind shields. Effect. Increases wind resistance, increases magic flight speed, and allows you to unleash powerful wind blades or control enemy movement for a short time. Earth breathing, type, defense buff. Description constructs earth elemental magic circuits enhancing the caster's physical resilience and strength. Earth energy can be used to enhance physical defense or provide terrain control. Effects. Increases earth resistance, increases stamina and endurance, can summon earth spikes for attack or create earth walls for defense. Water breathing, type, recovery assistance. Description constructs a water-based magical circuit allowing the caster to manipulate water for healing and purification. Water energy can be used for healing or cleansing magic. Effects. Increases water resistance, heals oneself or allies, and can unleash water blast or purification magic. Breath of thunder, type, attack burst. Description constructs a lightning attribute magic circuit granting the caster powerful control over lightning. Lightning energy can be used for high-damage bursts of attacks. Effects. Increases lightning resistance, increases attack speed, and can unleash chain lightning or paralyze enemies. Breath of darkness, type, stealth assassination. Description constructs dark magic circuits allowing the caster to blend into the shadows and become difficult to detect. Shadow energy can be used for stealth or assassination. Effect. Increases dark resistance, enhances stealth ability, and allows the use of shadow binding or assassination skills. Wind attribute circuit completed. Earth attribute circuit completed, water attribute circuit completed, lightning attribute circuit completed, dark attribute circuit completed. As massive new magical circuits began to form within his body, Chris felt an unprecedented sense of exhilaration. An ocean of boundless magic converged into rivers and currents of all sizes, spreading throughout his limbs and bones. 5 brand new magic circuits with different attributes. In addition to the breath of fire that he already possessed and the serpent core that served as his main circuit, he now has a total of 7 magic circuits. It's important to understand that a magic circuit is not simply a pathway, but rather represents a complete magic transport system. Ordinary wizards possess only 1 magic circuit, while exceptionally gifted individuals might have 2 or 3, which is already extremely rare. If a genius wizard can achieve dual standby by running 2 magic circuits simultaneously, then Chris can now achieve the strength of 7 standby plus unlimited memory. 7 massive magic circuits roared into operation, and the terrifying pressure they unleashed caused the new skill, Burning Wind Feathers, to gradually expand and deform as the magic power was transmitted. Just before the Burning Wind and Blazing Feathers skill caused a complete change in appearance, Chris stood in midair and slowly walked into the sealed gate. Then he casually closed the door, effectively trapping the dog inside. Based on the previous situation analysis, the Order's planned pentagram blood sacrifice array should have been successfully constructed. Otherwise, the situation where the two-horned demon almost escaped earlier would be inexplicable. Assuming the scenario described in the first fragment of the Oracle has been fully realized, then it means that my plan to have Golden Dawn, Greta pass through the village and incidentally stop the blood sacrifice has failed. However, the scenes depicted in the second fragment of the Divine Realm, such as abandoned cities, broken churches, and collapsed bell towers, did not unfold before his eyes. Only the Adventurers' Guild had become a ruin, which could be considered a partial realization. Does this mean that the ability to influence the future depicted in the Oracle exists only within oneself? In other words, as a singularity, the closer a predetermined future is to itself, the less likely it is to occur smoothly, as it will be somewhat influenced by itself. This also explains why Greta's actions failed. Now, even though the seal has been broken, as long as I block the seal gate, the other party still cannot get out, and the scene depicted on the third fragment of the Oracle naturally becomes a mirage. Chris's gaze swept across the system interface, then fixed on the space ahead. Tide modifier, overall assessment, elemental wizard status bar, physiological strength, advanced right arrow elite, exceptional physical qualities, suitable for extreme physical and magical activities. Mental strength, elite right arrow legendary, exceptional mental concentration, capable of advanced consciousness control and mental magic. Magic power, stream level right arrow storm level plus infinity. Sure enough, after being enhanced by 5 brand new magic circuits, he easily reached the level of an elemental wizard. All that's left is to fight. The space inside the sealed gate is an endless plane, similar to the creation of the Spirit Serpent Star Core dimensional space, but it is not a space of consciousness but a material space. Caught off guard by the sudden punch, the two-horned demon was sent flying over 100 meters backward. It managed to stop its retreat by flapping its enormous, sky-covering wings and gliding away, seemingly unharmed. That's better, it'll be more interesting when they fight. Chris stepped forward. With a single step, the Burning Wind, outer protective layer of Burning Wind Feather, rapidly expanded and reorganized into a giant suit of armor under the infusion of a large amount of magic power, with multiple grooves for the flow of magic power etched on its surface. It became a humanoid weapon tens of meters tall, even slightly taller than the enormous two-horned demon in front of it. My name is Sanir, one of the 12 demon generals under the Blood God, a great and ancient being whom the Order has long revered. As a blood priest, not only did you not voluntarily offer your own flesh and blood, but you also dared to attack me, the king. Could it be that a rebellion has broken out within the Order? State your name and I will surely sacrifice your soul. The demon who called himself Sanir did not speak, but a deep voice echoed throughout the space. It seems that there are strange laws within this special sealed space which prevent information from being conveyed through words but can play sound through thought. Chris quickly understood the basis of this law. As a special sealed space, it was established by certain beings with special laws to suppress the abilities of those imprisoned, such as the ability to chant magic, the ability to communicate with the outside world, the ability to construct magic, and so on. If you think about it that way, it's not so strange that you can communicate with your mind here. At the same time, Chris also keenly noticed that the flow of magic slowed down considerably in this space. The Burning Wind armor that was about to transform temporarily stopped its natural transformation after I entered this space. It only completed the second stage of transformation after I infused it with magic power again. It's important to note that you've used 7 magic circuits simultaneously to achieve this effect. An ordinary wizard would probably have almost all of their abilities sealed the moment they entered this space. Not only is it impossible for them to chant or manipulate magic, but communication with the outside world has also become extremely difficult. Furthermore, their opponent is a high-ranking demon with extremely high magic resistance, a robust physique, and expertise in melee combat. However, all the magical skills Chris used were derived from the system's deductions, omitting the chanting incantation and casting posture parts and replacing them with the most suitable method for using infinite magic power, simply and directly injecting magic power to do the job. If we compare the speed of magic flow to internet speed, then Chris is currently in a space with extremely poor signal, but he can further enhance his performance by stacking more than 7 internet speeds, and he has unlimited data and does not rely on external signals. With the aid of echoes of memory, Chris quickly recalled the name of a member of the blood god cult he had heard once before and said in a serious tone, "My name is Valak and I've come to take your life. Our blood god cult should be carrying on the legacy, not placing our hopes on you sealed away old fogies. Very well, so you've even forgotten who taught your order blood magic. Is this your choice? I will notify the remaining 11 demon generals to begin the hunt and subject you to the wrath of purgatory." With a roar, Sanal flapped its wings and its massive body moved with lightning speed, rapidly approaching Chris's location. Bang! With a deafening roar, the enormous demon's body, trailing a streak of fire, was sent flying backward once more, 3 times faster than when it arrived. Maintaining his right fist stance, Chris slowly felt the immense flow of magic power throughout his body. A red magic groove on the surface of the burning wind armor rapidly completed an internal cycle under the enormous propulsion, adding to this normal attack. This was an enchanted attack and also an attempt by Chris after mastering his newfound power. It was a great success. Generally speaking, after using a powerful spell, the magic circuit will become overloaded, preventing the use of the same skill again for a short period of time. Within this special space, the cooldown time for overload may be further increased due to the fluctuations in magical energy. However, for the Burning Wind Armor mech currently controlled by Chris, such an attack can be launched a total of 7 times. And when the 7th enchanted attack is used up, the magic circuit used for the first time will have completed its cooldown. This means that every attack Chris makes from now on could be his strongest strike. Even in spaces with extremely low magic flow rates, it can still achieve an infinite loop inside the sealed gate on the plane. The massive body of the 2-horned demon Sanier dragged a deep trench in the ground, extending for hundreds of meters in the direction of the attack, until half of its body exploded, still burning with raging flames. Just now, Chris used the corresponding attribute Enchanted Attack while in the Burning Wind and Blazing Feathers skill state, which not only brought out the full power of the original skill, but also added extra damage of the corresponding attribute. The enchantment was created using fire attribute magic generated from a fire attribute circuit, which will naturally cause attacks to inflict burning damage. Suddenly, a deep, bone-revealing scar appeared on the back of the demon's tens of meters tall body, spurting out countless drops of blood that stained the golden plains a dark red. The power of that single strike was terrifying. Cough, cough, cough. This isn't right. What you're using isn't blood magic at all, which means you're not a member of the blood god cult. Otherwise, how could you have mastered other types of magic to this level? Sanal spat out a large amount of blood, wiped his mouth with his scaly right hand, and asked in a heavy breath, "Times have changed. If I were to dedicate all my efforts to cultivating blood magic, how could I possibly surpass a demon who has cultivated for countless years in magical skill? This fully demonstrates the obsolescence of blood magic and that it should have been replaced long ago." Without batting an eye, Chris continued his nonsensical ramblings with a straight face. If it weren't for the extremely difficult requirements regarding the quantity and quality of sacrifices required for blood magic, our order wouldn't be in this predicament of fleeing everywhere. We would have been able to compete with the traditional churches long ago. In order to further provoke the other party's emotions and lure them into revealing even greater weaknesses, Chris added another point. "Fine, fine, fine. Since things have come to this, I'll show you the power of original blood magic and let you die knowing why." After saying that, Sanier let out a loud shout and the blood that had just spurted out of his body began to flow back, rushing to the wound as if it had come back to life. This is the unique characteristic of the blood magic lineage. Although very few people can successfully cultivate it, once they do, not only does their total magical power and quality surpass those of other wizards of equal skill, but their physical attributes and recovery abilities also exceed human limits. Do you know why? Sanel threw his head back and laughed, recounting the secrets of blood magic without any restraint, and continued on his own without waiting for Chris's reaction. That's because blood magic wasn't originally designed for human wizards to practice. It was developed by some of our demon race to improve the purity of our bloodline, a cultivation method exclusively for demons. By the way, practitioners of blood magic are completely unable to circulate their magic when facing practitioners of original blood magic, and can only offer their necks for slaughter. Mere humans are only fit to be our food, obediently becoming tools for me to purify my bloodline. At this moment, after using root blood magic, Sanier's physical strength increased to another level, allowing him to manipulate his own blood to provide various forms of support and attacks in battle. Soon, its body was enveloped in blood filled with immense magical power, and it actually created a suit of blood armor modeled after Chris's burning wind armor. As soon as the armor was complete, Sanier stretched out his muscular right hand and eagerly reached for Chris's heart. The blood oozing from his palm made his already dark hand look even more ferocious and eerie. This powerful claw strike was effortlessly blocked by Chris raising his left hand, completely deflecting it. Before the other party could recover from their shock, Chris activated the wind attribute magic circuit on his right hand, which glowed with a blue light that instantly filled his entire right arm. The next moment, his right fist, accompanied by a whistling sound, met the opponent's charging momentum with a head-on strike. Fortunately, Sanier was a seasoned demon general who managed to turn his face to the side at the critical moment, avoiding the almost fatal headshot. However, the wind pressure generated by the swing of his fist sent him staggering backward. How come you weren't affected at all? Sanel found it somewhat unbelievable that a wizard who hadn't studied blood magic could become a blood priest of the blood god order. It was almost impossible. Although I wanted to question the other person's identity, the mask they were wearing was a red goat mask that only a genuine devout believer would wear. More than its confusion, it was still terrified by the punch Chris had just thrown. Although a headshot wouldn't be enough to completely kill a high-ranking demon like itself, it would certainly put it in a disadvantageous and passive position. Currently, I am not in a superior position. Exposing such a large flaw to the opponent when we are barely evenly matched will greatly reduce my chances of winning. While calculating in his mind, Sanel took 2 steps back without making a sound, preparing to delay until his injuries healed before continuing the direct combat. After all, the other party cannot know that root blood magic, like other powerful spells, will put a great burden on the magic circuit if used continuously in a short period of time. Using it during the cooldown period could cause permanent damage to the magic circuits. Unless your life is in danger, you must wait for a short period of time. For the powerful beings of this class, often not even a short waiting period but even a fleeting magical exchange is enough to determine the victor. Such a powerful attack, I'm afraid you won't be able to use it many more times. How about we compromise and sign a contract? You go back to recuperate first and I won't go to the mortal realm for now. I can also give you a legendary magical material. What do you say? In an attempt to buy more time, Sanel couldn't resist tempting him further. Even if I kill you, the footage will still be mine. To Sanel's horrified gaze, a blue magic circuit and a purple magic circuit appeared in Chris's left and right hands respectively, then lit up with 2 completely different lights. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The operation of the 2 extremely powerful magical forces caused the atmosphere in the entire space to vibrate. This was also the first time that Chris had used an enchanted attack empowered by 2 magical circuits at the same time. The roaring sound of the surging magic power circulating at high speed in the magic circuits sounded like a death knell to Sanier's ears. Damn it, doesn't this kid's ultimate skill have a cooldown? Without hesitation, Sanyar turned around and flew backward at full speed. At the same time, with the blessing of blood magic, a pair of blood wings grew, increasing his flight speed. He had no intention of taking the hit head-on, just kidding. Even if I just took a direct hit and recovered, it doesn't mean I'm confident I can withstand 2 attacks of that magnitude at the same time. If you can't keep up with the speed at which you regenerate health, you'll probably be blasted into dust in an instant. As Sanyar fled in panic, it caught a chilling glimpse of something out of the corner of its eye. The third magic circuit pattern slowly emerged on Chris's right leg from the burning wind armor that covered his body. A black light suddenly appeared. Without a sound, the somewhat exaggeratedly large body of the burning wind armor vanished into thin air. As dark magic was channeled into his magic circuits, Chris's body seemed to be shrouded in a black veil, making him virtually invisible. Sanyar dared not be careless in the slightest. He could feel the other party approaching him at an extremely fast pace, and the distance between them was constantly shrinking. More importantly, he had no way of knowing the opponent's movements. If he were to take those 2 attacks, which carried immense magical power, without any warning, he would be severely injured, if not killed. With full power activated root blood magic, a new pair of blood wings were constructed from blood beneath the fleshy wings of Sanyar's massive demonic body. Combined with the blood wings that had already been used once, he now had a total of 6 wings. Blood magic was originally invented to purify bloodlines, and it includes many life-saving methods to ensure the survival rate of sacrifices. As a superior alternative to blood magic, root blood magic offers just as many ways to survive. The speed increased again, and Sanyar's heavy body now became an obstacle to flight, preventing the sudden burst of acceleration from achieving the effect of completely widening the distance. Sensing an eerie aura mixed with dark magic drawing ever closer, Sanyar gritted his teeth and unleashed countless streams of blood from every pore of his body to enhance the magic's effect. That's not enough. Under the cover of the blood armor, Sanyar directly drained all the blood from his body, leaving only the amount needed to sustain life in order to reduce the burden as much as possible. It's all right. As long as you have a breath left, your blood will naturally flow back into your body and you will be revived. Even before it was sealed, no one could force it out of this trick. I never expected that I would be defeated by this kid I just met today. Unforgivable. Unleashing the full power of his blood, the blood armor also grew 3/10 larger with this enhancement, its size subtly matching that of the burning wind armor. Reaching new heights of speed, Sanyar did not choose to counterattack or defend. Instead, it changed direction and flew straight up into the sky. Since we can't pinpoint the opponent's exact location, let's force them to come to the sky where there's nowhere to hide and no shadows. As expected of a seasoned demon general, Sanyar once again unleashed his fighting instincts in the face of life and death, subconsciously choosing the most suitable battlefield for himself. With all his might, he barely managed to fly into the sky, just half a body length away from the burning wind armor touching his body. At the same time, Chris released the shadow cloak state he had been in since activating his dark attribute magic, gathering the curtain-like dark attribute magic at the bottom of his feet to form a pitch-black disc. "Wanna play aerial combat? I'm a professional," Chris grinned. The opponent had only burned his life force to increase the speed of the blood armor to its limit for a short time, while his own burning wind armor possessed unlimited power under the blessing of 7 cores. Besides, I am far from being able to fully unleash my power. 7 attacks and I'll take your head. After a brief declaration, the magic circuits constructed with the Spirit Serpent Star Core as their core shone brightly, then split into 5 new magic circuits. This means that the quality of the basic magic circuits that form the core of Chris's being is equivalent to that of 5 additional magic circuits. 5 new magic circuits extend from the back of the armor along the head, left hand, left leg, and right leg respectively, and connect closely with the magic circuits that already existed in these areas, forming a larger, more complete circuit. If this were done inside the human body, the body would likely be unable to withstand the immense flow of magical power and would explode, resulting in death. However, within this burning wind armor constructed of magic, it is possible to achieve and maintain this state for a short period of time, at the cost of forcibly putting magic, which could originally be used without limit, into a cooldown state. As the starlight shifted, the massive armor gradually compressed to a mere 3 meters in height, while the terrifying magical power contained within it surged ever higher. The first attack, driven by Earth attribute magic, propelled a stone pillar rapidly from beneath his feet, forcefully slamming Chris high into the air, giving him considerable initial acceleration from the force of the blow. The second attack saw the circuits of lightning magic activate with a roar, unleashing a torrent of lightning energy across the body's surface before erupting behind, accelerating a second time. The third attack involved wind attribute magic wrapping around the caster's body, increasing their movement speed and agility, and significantly reducing air resistance while maintaining a stable flight trajectory. 3 consecutive accelerations brought him within striking distance of Sanier's fleeing figure wielding his 6 wings in an instant. How is this possible? How can a human body withstand this amount of magical power? Without hesitation, Sanier clapped his hands together and his massive body exploded. The rain and mist of blood obscured the view ahead and the direction of the magic flow, making it difficult to discern. Chris's face was ashen and he didn't slow down at all, crashing headlong into the rain of blood. The fourth attack saw water attribute magic circuits circulate endlessly across the body's surface, a thin layer of water constantly blocking the corrosive blood, emitting a sizzling sound. For the fifth attack, the dark magic circuits quietly activated once more, taking advantage of the gap created by the rain of blood to hide in the opponent's blind spot and quickly close in. While this widespread deception can be very effective in delaying the enemy, it also makes Sanel temporarily lose track of his movements and makes it difficult for him to make accurate judgments. With the enemy in the open and himself in the dark, Chris advanced with unstoppable momentum, overcoming the obstacles of the blood rain and reaching even higher in the sky. At a glance, a figure was seen flying downwards to the lower left of the blood rain, its 2 pairs of blood wings already dissipated, stumbling and falling. Sanier's massive body, now 3/10 thinner, was covered in blood, clearly a consequence of his all-out magical escape. While the opponent's series of responses were certainly brilliant, unfortunately, in the face of absolute strength, all schemes and tricks are nothing but paper tigers. For the 6th attack, fire attribute magic condensed in the eyes of the armor, and 2 blazing red laser beams swept out directly. In the blink of an eye, Sanel's last pair of fleshy wings, which he used for flight, were instantly vaporized, leaving a smooth and clean cross-section. Before it could even scream, a hand glowing blue had already pierced its chest and pressed down gently. The 7th attack. The air was unusually heavy and the other dimensional space appeared slightly distorted. Bang! With a deafening roar, countless pieces of flesh mixed with small showers of blood exploded into the air. It wasn't the power of blood magic that created the spectacle, rather, it was the massive mountain-like body that was directly crushed by an even larger surge of magical power. Valak, I, Sanier, curse you. May you be sacrificed to the blood god and eternally condemned to the blood sea of purgatory. Before the high-ranking demon Sanier completely vanished, he only managed to utter this one sentence before turning into ashes. Amidst the ashes, a talisman emitted a faint black light. Chris reacted quickly, grabbing the object and stuffing it into his pocket. Then, with a clap of his hands, 7 streams of magic of different attributes twisted together and suddenly exploded, spreading out a ripple in the surrounding space, instantly annihilating the gradually dissipating ashes. Finish off the opponent to prevent them from reviving and rising again. In addition, the false name that was deliberately revealed earlier also played a role. The curses of demons of this caliber, cast before their death, inevitably carry some of their power and aura from their previous life, which may have some negative consequences later on. But at least I don't feel any discomfort right now. On the contrary, I feel a sense of freedom. Feeling the warmth of the object in my arms, a familiar mechanical voice came. A consumable magical item has been detected. Absorb it. Chris looked in the direction of the sound. Tide modifier system interface item name, high rank demon mark / Sanier's amulet item type, amulet item level, legendary. Item description: the mark of a high demon is a mysterious amulet inscribed with ancient demonic runes. It is trophy obtained from defeated high demons and contains powerful magic and unknown forces. This amulet may not only grant its holder special abilities but is also considered a key to the demonic realm. Item effect: demonic power. Upon activation of the amulet, the holder may gain temporary demonic power, including but not limited to physical enhancement, increased magical attack power, or the granting of new magical skills. Dimensional portal. Under certain conditions, the amulet may open a portal to the demonic dimension, allowing the holder or others to enter. Demonic resonance. When worn for an extended period, magical effects related to demons may be enhanced, or it may make it easier to attract the attention of demons. Item risk. Soul binding. The amulet may attempt to bind itself to the holder's soul, which could lead to unpredictable consequences. Demonic temptation. Holding the mark may attract the attention of other demons, making the holder a target of demonic forces. Magic backlash. Improper use of the amulet's power may result in a magical backlash, causing harm to the holder. Conditions for use: strong willpower. Using the amulet requires the holder to have a firm will to resist the corruption of demonic power. Successfully achieved. Magic level. Understanding and activating the amulet's power requires a storm-level magic quality. Already reached by default. Current status: not activated. Good grief, did they drop new equipment? It's just that we don't need it now, but we can save it for later, just in case. In any case, unless it's worn for an extended period, the demon resonance ability won't trigger. Rather, sometimes I'd rather they come to me on their own initiative, like waiting for them to come to me. For him now, most demons and organizations either give him experience points or magical items. He took a deep breath to relieve the fatigue from using so much magic power continuously and looked up at the sky. Chris slowly removed the red goat mask from his head, feeling the heat wave from the aftershocks of the explosion wash over him. The Blood God cult's organized and premeditated plan ultimately failed despite their relentless efforts. I can finally rest peacefully for a while. Just then, Chris suddenly frowned, looked into the distance, and then looked around. All around were endless plains with no other scenery but devastation as proof of the earth-shattering battle that had just taken place. Something was wrong. A sense of unease washed over me, and I suddenly remembered the last thing I should do: leave safely. When he looked at the space he had entered, he saw that the gate that had sealed the space had vanished. I was able to enter this other dimensional space by passing through that gate, and correspondingly I should also go through that gate to return. Chaotic magical fluctuations surged throughout the space. Could it be that with the destruction of the sealed entity, the entire space itself was beginning to crumble and dissipate? Or perhaps the rescue forces arrived and reinforced the seal once again to prevent the higher-ranking demons from escaping. Regardless of the situation, it's not a good thing for Chris. This must be resolved immediately. Chris raised the mask in his right hand, focusing intently. A consumable magical item has been detected. Absorb it. Confirmed absorption. In-depth development. Remaining attempts: 0. Right arrow 2. In-depth development. Data fusion requirements related to spatial awareness capabilities detected. Deep development usage count 1. Please confirm. In-depth development. Remaining attempts: 2. Right arrow 1. Relevant data has been completed. Simulation continues. Simulation complete. Technical deconstruction. Analyzing the echoes of memory and the constituent circuits of spatial perception. Skill analysis. Echoing memory allows the caster to revisit and observe past events and enhances spatial awareness of the surrounding environment. Motivation identification. Determine the purpose of the magical fusion. Create a new auxiliary skill that combines memory replay and spatial cognition. Power test. Analyzes and determines the magical power required for activation, already skipped by default performance assessment. Assessing the new skill's potential information gathering capabilities, spatial awareness range, accuracy and duration of memory recall to ensure excellent support effectiveness in both exploration and combat. Calculations complete. Simulated fusion. Simulates the activation process of a new skill in a virtual environment to ensure the correctness of the magic circuits and the realization of the skill's effects. Tests the performance of the new skill in different exploration scenarios, including information gathering, environmental analysis, path planning, and tactical deployment, as well as its adaptability in complex environments. Simulation complete. In-depth development, remaining attempts 1 right arrow 0 current progress 100% deduction results, skill name, boundary insight skill level, proficient. Skill description, memory spatial mapping is a composite skill combining reverberation of memories with spatial awareness. The caster can use this skill to recall past memories within a specific space while simultaneously perceiving detailed information about the current environment. This skill is highly effective in reconnaissance, search, and environmental analysis, constructing an overlay of the target area's history and current state in the caster's mind, providing support for tactical planning and decision-making. Skill effect. Memory mapping, mapping past memory fragments to a specified area to reveal hidden information or clues. Spatial insight, enhances the caster's awareness of the surrounding space, identifying potential threats and resources in the environment. Historical echoes, analyzing events from memory, predicting possible future changes, and providing a reference for tactical deployment. Environmental integration combines past memories with the present environment, providing the spellcaster with a comprehensive understanding of the environment. Skill cost, mana consumption, medium. Activating and maintaining the memory space drawing requires a certain amount of mana. Mental concentration, using this skill requires the caster to concentrate intensely in order to maintain the accuracy and stability of the memory mapping. Skill cooldown, medium. Memory space drawing can be used multiple times in a short period of time, but care should be taken to avoid excessive consumption of mental energy. With the completion of the development of the new skill Domain Insight, a flower-shaped azure flame bloomed in Chris's right eye. The azure flames flickered gently like a lighthouse shimmering in a dark sea. The moment the new skill Boundary Insight was activated, Chris's consciousness was enveloped by a gentle power, as if sinking into the river of time. The cracked earth, the spatial disorder, and the destruction and chaos that had just occurred began to disrupt the normal flow of river water in the river basin. His consciousness tightened as these images shifted, and now he could feel the experiences behind every crack in the ground, every detail whispering in his ear. The effects of the skill did not cease. Chris's senses, like magnified tentacles, explored the surrounding spatial structure. He could sense the distorted spatial fluctuations like a gentle breeze before a storm, foreshadowing the coming tempest. There's not much left for me. I must find the exit from this space as soon as possible. Chris frowned slightly, closed his left eye, and immersed himself completely in exploring the seemingly boundless sealed space in the ocean. As the azure flame in his right eye suddenly exploded, a familiar spatial fluctuation emanated from it. Even though he couldn't see the exact location of the sealed gate with his own eyes, he had already pinpointed its location with the help of Domain Insight. With a flash, Chris accelerated at full speed and instantly appeared in the space where the sealed gate was located. Based on the direction he remembered, he raised his hand and pushed. The not quite closed seal gate was easily pushed open, and at the same time, the planes within the sealed space began to gradually disintegrate. A long-awaited ray of dawn came into view, bringing a sense of peace and warmth. After removing the burning wind armor that he had been wearing for so long to make it easier to pass, Chris stepped into the square in front of the Adventurers Guild in Gar City, announcing his official return. As the sealed gate closed, Chris looked around to assess the situation. Were there reinforcements or enemy reinforcements? But all they saw was a desolate ruin littered with corpses, blood, and stones. Just then, familiar red pupils lit up in the darkness, which was still untouched by sunlight, and a clear voice rang out. "I knew you wouldn't fall so easily in that so-called sealed space. After all, you're the only one who passed my trial in that way." A familiar magical fluctuation emanated from her, and Chris immediately recognized her as Flavia, whom he had only recently met. At the same time, suppress the subconscious urge to attack, regain the sense of reality that you are in the real world and the sense of security that the crisis has been resolved. "Flavia, what are you doing here?" wasn't a high-ranking demon heading towards the academy. Chris steadied himself, met those vibrant red eyes, and quickly grasped the situation. Since the other party appeared at the Adventurers Guild in the central area of Gar City, it means that the problems within the academy have been resolved, or that she is unable to return to the academy. To verify his idea, Chris instantly contacted his familiar Little Black, whom he had been unable to reach in the other dimensional sealed space. Because of the upgrade of his memory-type magic, his current boundary insight ability can also be extended to his personal familiars. Even though it's just a familiar shaped like a pigeon, its field of vision is now enough to cover the entire city of Gal, and even extend to a radius of several thousand meters around the city. As azure flames erupted from Zio-Ohai's eyes, information about the surrounding scenery began to flood into Chris's brain, and was automatically analyzed, categorized, and organized to identify the key information for his search. The first large-scale scan was to confirm whether any remnants or spies of the Blood God cult still existed. Chris could sense that there were no strange people walking on the streets of Gar City, nor any magical fluctuations related to the blood magic and shadow harvest magic associated with the cult. At most, there will only be a few spies among ordinary people who lack magical abilities. Such a minor matter can be investigated by the nobles within the city. Outside Gar City, the Wolf King, codenamed Silver Claw of the Moon, a new member of the Galactic Council, led his wolf pack and a mixed legion of knights led by Golden Dawn Greta. The combined attack from both inside and outside the city wiped out the remaining fighting force of the Order with almost no effort. The reason the two can cooperate so well is because of the message board function that Chris added to the Galactic Council, which allows council members to communicate in a timely manner and determine each other's intentions. Having witnessed the Blood God cult's utter failure, Chris breathed a slight sigh of relief but remained vigilant as he continued to operate the magic array. The second extensive scan confirmed the extent of damage within the city of Gal and the condition of two key locations mentioned in the Oracle, the church and the college. From the air, it can be seen that the light blue protective shield surrounding the academy has been removed, but the academy itself is in a state of chaos, with only two towers still standing on the ground, enough to give a glimpse of the intensity of the previous battle. As for the church, the golden protective shield blocking the outside world remained standing. As clergy who were skilled in defense and home field combat, the holy wall cast by the bishop could keep most of the invading enemies outside the wall. However, if I hadn't kept that high-ranking demon within the sealed space, this level of defense probably wouldn't have been enough to protect the safety of the people inside. From this perspective, the holy wall, activated by a bishop-level being, can at most only withstand high-level demons. In the little-known city of Gar, although it couldn't compare to the cathedrals of larger cities with archbishops, it was still a place that could protect the peace of the region. Since the sacred wall was not broken, it means there was no problem inside the church. In summary, the enemy has been completely wiped out and the academy and church were not completely destroyed. Only the ruins of the Adventurers Guild need to be rebuilt. It seems I have truly succeeded in reversing the scene described in the Oracle. Although Chris quickly unleashed two large-scale domain insight attacks within a second, determined to thoroughly investigate the current situation by relying on the characteristics of infinite magic power. Just as he was about to begin the third round of wide-range scanning, a sapphire ring was tossed from Flavia's hand. It drew a graceful curve in the air and landed in Chris's right palm. "I'm here, of course, to see you and also to get a close look at the battle. Too bad." With a sigh, Flavia continued, "The sapphire ring contains relics of the order that I collected from nearby. They should rightfully belong to you. But with such a commotion just now, I doubt anyone but me dared to come out and watch." Chris picked up the ring and examined it briefly, discovering that its interior was surprisingly spacious, containing a full 3 cubic meters of extra-dimensional storage space. It's a storage ring, Tide Modifier, System Interface Item Name, Flavia's Sapphire Ring Item Type, Magical Accessory Ring Item Level, Intermediate Item Description. A beautiful sapphire ring from Flavia's collection containing an extra-dimensional space for storing items. The ring was a gift from Flavia and contains relics of the cult she had collected. It now belongs to Chris. Item performance. Interdimensional storage. The ring has a 3 cubic meter storage space inside which can store various items and will not be affected by changes in the external environment. Quick access. The wearer can quickly take items out of or put them into the ring, making the operation simple and fast. Magic protection. The ring has basic magical protection which can resist a certain degree of magical detection and theft. Item restrictions. Spiritual connection. The ring requires a spiritual connection with the wearer to be used. It is difficult for outsiders to use. Weight perception. The weight of the items inside the ring will not affect the wearer's perception, but attention should be paid to balance when removing them. Current status, not activated. Chris was slightly taken aback. He hadn't expected the other party to give him the storage ring so readily. Although mid-level magical items are not particularly rare, storage rings are made with extremely high-quality materials and are very expensive to produce, resulting in a very low circulation rate. Only wizards of Flavia's caliber can freely give them away. Without hesitation, Chris put the ring on his index finger and began to channel his mental energy into it, fully activating and binding the unclaimed storage ring. Inside the space, 21 blood priest staffs were neatly arranged, along with a snow-white letter. A consumable magic item has been detected. Absorb it. Item name, Blood Priest Standard Staff * 21 Item type, Magic Equipment Priest Staff partially damaged, awaiting repair. Item level, Beginner. Item description. This staff is standard equipment for blood priests of the Blood God Order, used to enhance and execute blood magic. Engraved with intricate crimson runes and imbued with a dark red magical light, it is an indispensable tool in blood rituals and combat. Without hesitation, Chris chose to absorb everything the moment he heard the system's mechanical prompt. In-depth development. Remaining attempts, 0 right arrow 21. Chris was overjoyed he'd struck it rich this time, an unexpected bonus. I had thought these staffs would be destroyed in the previous fierce battle, but they were all lying quietly in my storage ring. Sure enough, the fastest way to acquire magical items is by directly confronting the cult. These 21 staves alone would have taken an unknown amount of time to earn gold coins to buy them. Unfortunately, the cult's long-term plan has been successfully disrupted, and its vital forces have been eliminated, leaving it severely weakened. It's likely that the cult will not be seen in this area for a long time. As for the surprise, it was because the snow-white letter contained elegant aristocratic language recommending the relevant person, clearly indicating that it was a letter of recommendation. I noticed you didn't have a storage ring before, so I took the liberty of getting one for you. I hope it didn't backfire. It's just a small token of my appreciation, not nearly as valuable as your contribution in preventing the seal from opening. Seeing Chris readily accept the ring, Flavia nodded and spoke slowly. As for that letter of recommendation, I've been thinking about how to write it ever since you left the library tower. With your talent, you shouldn't just stay in this small place like Gar, you should go out and explore a wider world. The Royal Higher School of Wizardry Manaria, located within the so-called Guardian City of Vestalia, might offer some convenience on your path to becoming a wizard. Of course, the choice is always yours. Once things stabilize in Gar City, I might also go there for a while. As Chris listened, he ran his thumb along the surface of the sapphire ring. In the past few days of thrilling adventures, this was the first time someone had been so kind to him. Otherwise, he was either fighting or on his way to fight, constantly busy. He opened his mouth slightly as if about to say something. Just then, a beam of red light suddenly shot from the direction of the church, soaring straight into the sky. Damn it, the cult had a backup plan. Chris's expression changed, his worst fears had come true. No matter how much you guard against it, it's hard to guard against a thief within your own ranks. Even the strongest defenses are often breached from within. If the problem originates within the academy or church, then even if the main external forces of the cult are eliminated, the lurking cult members will become a ticking time bomb. At this point, it seems my prediction has come true. The reason why there have been no attacks on the cult by members of the cult or demons is because there have always been spies and informants from the other side within the cult, and they have the ability to purge the current clergy of the church. The fact that the other party has not shown up or dispelled the holy wall, activated by the church, is probably because they want to use the holy wall as a barrier to isolate themselves from outside knowledge and communication as much as possible. In order to achieve their own goals, Flavia, the Adventurers Guild, is now in ruins and no longer needs guarding. Let's split up. You go back and oversee the academy while I'll go to the church to investigate the situation. With his mind racing, Chris sensed the aura of a blood magic-related sacrificial circle rising in the direction of the church and instantly prepared himself for the worst. Flavia nodded gently, obediently turned and left in the direction of the academy. It was her duty to guard the Magic Academy and take charge of the overall situation. Chris's judgment was correct. Although the apparent influence of the cult has been completely eliminated, it is still not advisable to act rashly before order is restored. Moreover, after witnessing Chris prevent the sealing gate from descending, she gradually began to trust this young wizard she had only met a few times. Neither of them exchanged any words and headed straight for their destination. Chris was about to activate his new skill, Burning Wind Feathers, when he discovered that the skill was on cooldown. Normally, one's skills do not go on cooldown when activated. However, magic that covers the entire body puts a considerable burden on the magic circuits. In addition, the long-term overload drive can unleash more power than the original skill, so sometimes it will go on cooldown for a short time. But sometimes, even a short cooldown period of tens of minutes or a few minutes can be enough to influence the course of the battle. Time was of the essence, but Chris calmly brought up the system panel as he moved forward. Since the skills I already possess are on cooldown, I should just develop new skills. Newly acquired skills will not go on cooldown. Chris's eyes sharpened. In-depth development, Tide modifier system interface. In-depth development detected requirement for fusion of dark and water attributes. Exploration attempts 1, please confirm. In-depth development, remaining attempts 21, right arrow 20, relevant data has been completed, simulation continues. Simulation complete, spell deconstruction. Analyzing the circuitry of dark and water magic, skill analysis. Dark magic provides stealth and corrosive effects, while water magic enhances mobility and regeneration. Motive identification. Determining the purpose of the magical fusion. To create a new defensive skill that can cover the entire body, resembles a demon in appearance, uses dark magic as its core and uses water magic as its auxiliary. Power test. Analyzes and determines the magical power required for activation, already skipped by default effectiveness assessment. Evaluating the new skill's defensive strength, mobility, recovery effect, and duration to ensure effective protection and recovery in combat. Calculations complete. Simulated fusion. Simulates the activation process of a new skill in a virtual environment to ensure the correctness of the magic circuits and the realization of the skill's effects. Tests the performance of the new skill in different combat scenarios, including defense, mobility, and recovery, as well as its adaptability in sustained combat. Simulation complete. In-depth development, remaining attempts 20, right arrow 18, current progress 100%, deduction results. Skill name, Armor of the Dark Abyss, skill level, proficient. Skill description, Dark Abyss Armor is a full-body defensive skill that combines dark magic with water magic. The caster's entire body is covered by a layer of dark water, forming a demon-like armor. This armor not only provides powerful physical and magical defense, but also utilizes the fluidity and regeneration properties of water to allow the caster to move quickly and continuously recover in battle. Skill effect, Abyss Armor, provides additional protection, effectively resisting physical attacks and most magical damage. Netherworld Flow, combining the stealth effect of the dark attribute with the fluidity of the water attribute, it enhances the caster's mobility and concealment. Abyssal Restoration, the armor has self-repairing capabilities, continuously restoring the caster's health and mana. Continuous Protection, once activated, the skill can continuously protect the caster for a certain period of time without continuously consuming mana. Skill cost, mana consumption, medium. Activating and maintaining the Dark Abyss armor requires a certain amount of mana, but the consumption rate is relatively slow. Concentration: using this skill requires the caster to maintain a certain level of concentration in order to keep the armor stable. Skill cooldown, extremely short. The Dark Abyss armor can be activated multiple times during battle, but care should be taken to avoid over-reliance on it, which could lead to a monotonous combat strategy. Chris's eyes lit up. The new skill, Armor of the Dark Abyss, combines the Stealth of the Dark attribute with the Recovery of the Water attribute, making it perfect for stealthy mobility and battlefield ambushes. It also has an extremely short cooldown time and can be activated at will to force a cooldown state, thereby obtaining faster life recovery efficiency for healing. At the same time, it can also serve as a transitional form when other forms such as Burning Wind and Blazing Feathers enter cooldown mode. It is extremely easy to use and the transition is smooth. Without hesitation, Chris activated Armor of the Dark Abyss. Suddenly, the shadow beneath Chris's feet began to writhe, transforming into a viscous, gelatinous black shadow that lunged at his main body and enveloped it tightly. The next moment, ripples echoed across the black gelatinous surface, revealing scale-like armor. At the same time, the black gelatinous substance on its body transformed into a sharply defined, close-fitting suit of armor, almost weightless. A ray of sunlight pierced through the clouds and shone on Chris's body, which was clad in the Dark Abyss armor. However, there was no reflection or refraction. It sank straight into the darkness like a stone sinking into the sea. Seeing this, Chris was overjoyed. This was the perfect opportunity to commit murder, robbery, and plunder in the wild. If I had possessed this skill from the beginning, there wouldn't have been much need for me to wear that red goat mask and act as a blood priest. I would have been perfectly capable of eliminating my opponent in the darkness, silently and without a trace. Although he wanted to immediately explore more ways to use this new skill, Chris suppressed his joy. He had more important things to do now. Investigate the source of the dark red pillar of light emanating from the back of the Church of Glory. As magic continued to be injected, the armor of the Dark Abyss gradually entered the overload state. In his haste, Chris pushed the engine to its limit. As it moved, all that could be seen was a blurry shadow, hurtling at full speed with colors and speeds that were difficult for the human eye to perceive. The church, also located in Gar City, wasn't far from the Adventurers Guild, and Chris had even visited it once before, becoming a trainee agent. With the help of his familiar's global vision navigation from the sky, Chris directly crossed all obstacles to reach the church's main entrance by using the shortest route between 2 points. At this moment, the church's main gate and hall were reduced to ruins by the powerful magical fluctuations unleashed by the blood magic, with sand and stones flying everywhere. From the aerial view, it was discovered that only in the room at the far end of the corridor was there a small, cracked, golden protective shield. Watching the large holy wall above the entire church gradually being torn apart from the inside by the red pillar of light. Chris deduced that Sister Bate, with the strength of a bishop, saw that the situation was hopeless and led the survivors to retreat into the inner room to set up a smaller holy wall for a final resistance. What puzzled Chris was that there were Blood God Order members within the church with power exceeding that of bishops, and that they were so deeply entrenched. It's important to understand that bishops are equivalent to elemental wizards in the wizarding system, meaning they are at the same level as the recently departed Flavia. Furthermore, they possess a home field advantage when fighting within the church, and with the blessing of divine power, they can even rival the Tower Master level, a position attainable only by a select few elemental wizards. At least in the short term, the miracle that excels in defense will not be easily broken. The small holy wall in front of them was clearly dilapidated and seemed about to shatter into pieces at any moment. A streak of light flashed across the dilapidated outer ruins, heading straight for the end of the corridor lights. It was Chris, who had come to provide support, wielding the armor of the Dark Abyss. Before the barrier of golden light, a dark-skinned, slender, two-horned demon was relentlessly pounding on the crumbling door with its hands, its eyes bloodshot. Seeing this, Chris didn't waste any more words and quietly stepped forward. Raising a hand is a way of using body language to say a few heartfelt words.